Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto fails to capture Sasuke and is trained by Kyuubi after running away from Konoha part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. I failed. He thought sadly, laying in my white hospital room. He had failed. Badly. Sakura would be forever mad at him over this. But it didn't matter. She'd eventually get over it. But he wasn't just beaten. No, he was destroyed. Sasuke still got away, while he lay helpless in the dirt, not even conscious. Having just woken up, Naruto was still a little groggy. He turned to look at his bedside table and groaned. And he was still sore. The vessel saw nothing there except for a bottle of sake with a note for someone named Oscar Mayer. I wonder who that is. They must have gotten the wrong room. Nope. No flowers, no get well cards, nothing. Oh wait, no, the word demon was carved into the table. Okay, so someone visited him. I'll need to get that guy's address so I can beat the crap out of him or her, he added as an afterthought. Looking around the room, he noticed that there was nobody else in the room. He had a window and a door with a window, both bulletproof and unbreakable glass, he noticed, from the wire running through them both. How nice of them. What, no steel walls or 10-inch titanium steel door with time lock? Someone's slipping up, he thought bitterly. Oh well, Naruto thought and turned up the bottle. It burned my throat a little, but still didn't taste too bad. Naruto can almost see why Bachan liked this stuff so much, he thought as he drank myself into a quiet oblivion, going back to unconsciousness. Note to self, I can't handle alcohol, was his last coherent thought as the blackness from the corner of his vision took him over. He awoke knee-deep in water. Standing up, the boy looked around before realizing where he was. I've got to get my mind out of the gutter. He chuckled slightly at my joke and started walking, looking for where he wanted to be. Finally he found it, the room of the all-powerful Kyuubi. Naruto stepped in and immediately realized something was wrong. The bars weren't there. Konnichiwa, Kit, came a voice to his right. He looked and saw what looked like, well, it looked like a female Kyuubi/human with a Santa hat on. His ears stuck out of 2 holes that were cut in the hat, and 9 tails were swaying slightly. And Merry Christmas while I'm it, he said as he stuck a hat like his on Naruto's head. Kyuubi, why do you look like a girl? Fine, yes, I'm a girl. Any problems with that? The young boy couldn't help but stare at him or her. Of course, he was disturbed that there was a transvestite living in him. But still, she was beautiful. He couldn't help but glance down. She was a little under Tsunade's size. So, she wasn't sickeningly big, but wasn't like Sakura. Naruto then realized we came up to about the same height. She has about an inch on me. He also noticed the hair that fell down to just below her shoulder blades was red. Blood red. Her tails were the same color, and the tips were white. You gonna gawk all day? She asked him, grinning. He shook his head to bring him from his trance. So why exactly do you disguise yourself as a male again? He couldn't help but wonder. Thanks, you're not too bad looking yourself. Come see me again in a few more years, she said, making him blush slightly. Because people stare and ask me out, but don't fear me. However, if I'm a male, it's apparently a symbol of power to you stupid humans. He noticed something he'd missed before. Her whiskers showed up on her face as they did on mine. That's right, she has a face. Naruto continued to look her over again. She was in a dark red kimono that didn't look like it was for formal wear. No, this had to be just to make him stare. Her head had 2 fox ears sticking out of her hair. She had a face that didn't look kind, like he'd expected from her voice. Her eyes were a red that had a subtle beauty to them. Then he noticed her tail swaying in a way that almost had him in a trance. So do you have a name that's not Kyuubi? He asked, tearing his eyes away from her tail. Yeah, you sir, Shiri, fuzz, but. He felt his face heat up and she laughed in a way that was almost unearthly. That laugh wasn't human, that was for sure. Not angelic, just different. That's just something that doesn't get old. My real name is Hitomi, pupil, given to girls with especially beautiful eyes. That's a pretty name. She grinned. It was supposed to be happy, but in a way, it looked like she was up to something. Her large canines didn't help. Looking at those, he also looked down and saw that she had claws. They were elegant and deadly looking at the same time. How this was possible, he really didn't know. So Kit, to what do I owe this pleasant surprise visit? She asked, that grin still on her face. I sort of found some sake on the table next to my bed and drunk yourself into oblivion? She finished for him. There might be hope for you yet. I also saw your fight with Sasuke. It was embarrassing, she said, switching to a commanding voice, her grin falling into a frown of disappointment like a lead weight in water. She walked up to him and poked him in the chest. "You're weak." "I won't have a weak vessel, you hear me, boy?" She poked him harder and harder as she said each of the last 4 words. The 4th poke sent him on his butt. The memories of that fight came flooding back to him. The hole in the chest, getting knocked around like a rag doll. Sure, he tried, but what did he do? Who was left standing? Who walked away? Not me. She was right, and it hit home, and Naruto swore his heart was being ripped apart. He was weak. Naruto realized that, and it hurt. "Don't you start falling to pieces on me, Kit," she said, squatting down to eye level with him. "I'm gonna help you fix that. So you just pull yourself back together before I beat the crap out of you." Naruto still did nothing. She stood up and reared back a foot, then swung it forward, sending him flying. He bounced and skidded, not being able to control his body as it soared through the air. He finally stopped, after skidding the last 10 feet on his back. He knew he was bleeding, and he watched her walk up to him. "Get up," she said coldly. He did nothing. "I'll kick you again. Get up." "I can't." She looked at him, her cold expression turning to one of confusion. "One of your tails is holding me down." She noticed the tail, and started to move it, except Naruto grabbed it. "Look soft." He started petting it, and suddenly heard a sound like a motor. Then he noticed it was coming from Hitomi. He grinned as she sat on him and continued purring. Finally, she laid down, using Naruto as her own personal pillow, and fell asleep. He felt himself blush deep red as she slept on. He let go of her tail, and started scratching her at the base of her ears. Her purring doubled before finally he quit, wanting to see what happened. She yawned and stretched in a cat-like way, before looking up at her bed, her head on his chest still. She blushed deeply, as he already was blushing, and jumped up off him. "Damn it, Kit! I'm gonna kill you! Don't you ever touch my tails again, you hear me?" she screamed. It wasn't a question. "How long have I been in here anyway?" Naruto said as he looked around, before realizing his own stupidity. Of course there wasn't a clock in here. "Probably about 15-20 minutes in here. Outside, it's probably been about the same amount of time." He eyed her curiously. She noticed the look she was getting and continued. "I can control how fast time goes in here as opposed to how fast it goes outside. So it can be 20 minutes in here, and 20 seconds out there, or 20 seconds out there, and 20 days in here." His mouth made an O form. "Also, you shouldn't wake up from that sake for at least another hour. But we've gotta talk. So I'm gonna be a pain and fix the time. It's going to be an hour in here but a day out there." She grinned her evil foxy grin at him, as his jaw dropped. This was unjust. "So, what are we gonna talk about?" he asked, after having recovered from his shock. Her grin only widened. "Let's start with what bugs me the most. Those clothes," she said, pointing at him. "They should be outlawed. As your new sensei, I want you to burn them. All of them," she said, her eye twitching slightly at the sight of his clothes. "Actually, we're going to burn them," she said, walking out into the long hallway outside. He shrugged and followed her. She walked down corridors after corridor, each twisting them further and further into a twisted maze. Finally she stopped at a door. He grinned. "There should only be about 5 minutes left for me in here." She laughed. "More like about 50. Naruto stared at her, his jaw dropping slightly. She laughed harder. "Just to bug you, I made it take longer for you to wake up." "And how much longer exactly?" he said, frowning. "Not too much, just about 3 hours," he groaned. She grinned and opened the door, and grabbed the front of his shirt before throwing him in. She walked in behind him and slammed the door shut. Turning around, she tackled him and pulled his shirt and pants off of him. "There, that wasn't so bad, was it?" He was blushing deeply. He could feel my facing burning. "I'm in my underwear, and it's cold in here." "I wish you wore briefs." He barely heard her mutter. "Why?" he asked, staring at her. She just shook her head and turned a little red. She walked over to her closet and threw a shirt, pants, titanium-backed gloves, and a mask at him. "Put those on." Naruto stared at her. "Why can't I wear my old clothes?" "Because I said so. Now put them on." She screamed, and there was a roaring noise as she screamed. He quickly obliged and put the clothes on. "Now, when you wake up, you'll be wearing these. Look around the room when you wake up and you should find another gown. You're going to have to wear that as long as you're in the hospital." She walked over to the other side of the room and started pulling drawers open, apparently looking for something. She threw a scroll at him. Naruto was pulling a shirt over his head at the time, and got hit in the nose with it. "Ow!" he yelped, as his nose started to bleed. Her blood-red eyes started glowing as she rushed over to him. Basically, she was standing on one side of the room one moment, and then was in front of him before Naruto could even process the fact that she wasn't there anymore. She pushed him onto his back and held him down. Human blood, how I've wanted to taste it for so long. Naruto noticed her tail stiffen and her voice had a more demonic sound to it. Slowly, she licked the blood from his face, her claws digging to his chest as she drank his blood. He was too scared to move at that moment. He prayed for the nosebleed to stop. Fast. The more she drank, the more demonic-looking she became. Finally, he felt more of her tongue on his top lip than he had before. Which must mean that his nosebleed had stopped. He watched as her demonic features faded. She stopped finally and stared at him. Oops. Oops. That was it. He'd better not let her know he was bleeding on his chest or Naruto felt my face heat up again. Sorry about that. Whenever I see human blood as you just saw, I kinda sorta go into a demonic mode, she said. Then she promptly jumped up and turned back to her dresser, seeming to search for something again. However, she forgot about her mirror, and Naruto saw her blushing deeply. She finally turned around and walked over to him. While she was doing all this, he had finally pulled his pants on and was tying on the mask when she came up to him. Hey there, kid, she said in a sweet, hypnotizing voice. She threw her arms around his waist. Naruto started blushing. Slowly she moved in towards his face, before she pulled away from him, holding a kunai in her hand. Thanks, Kit, she said, grinning. He felt stupid as he realized that she couldn't have kissed him anyway, because he had his mask on. He gasped as she took the kunai and tore it down both of her forearms. She quickly soaked each hand in blood before the wound and blood on her arms both disappeared. The blood on her hands was still there though. Take your shirt off. What? Take it off, she screamed, the roar reappearing in her voice. He quickly pulled the shirt over his head. Now pull down the mask. After he had done as she asked, she quickly slammed her hands into his chest on both abs, again on the seal on his stomach, and drew a kanji symbol on both of his cheeks. He looked down when she was done and realized that there were bloody handprints on his chest and stomach. He also assumed that the kanji on his cheeks was also blood. Suddenly, it started to sizzle as steam rose from where the blood was. Something's still missing, she said, ignoring his groans of pain from the burning blood on him. Aha! I know what it is. With that, she quickly bit into his neck, easily drawing blood. She held her canines in his neck for a moment, then let him go. Okay, I'm done with ya, she said, waving him off with her hand. You can put your shirt and mask back on if you want. What did you do to me? Naruto yelled after the blood had quit sizzling and disappeared. The blood was so that now whenever you aren't here, I can still talk to you in your mind. That way I can train you. The bite on the neck, she snickered evilly. Well, that's a surprise. I won't tell you, you're gonna have to find out all by your lonesome. Hitomi had an evil grin pointed at him. So why did you attack Konoha? He asked suddenly. Her grin fell fast. She sighed. If I tell you, you're not gonna like it or me, she said sadly. She suddenly shook her head. No, I won't tell you. Maybe when you're older. But not now. You're better off not knowing for no. Anyway, it's time for you to wake up. Sakura's come to visit you, she said, brightening suddenly. His neutral face turned to one of sadness. Leave me in here. I can't face her. Just let me stay in here. Kit, I ain't having a wimpy vessel. Now you're gonna buck up, go out there, face her, and move on. You hear me? Again, it wasn't a question. Wait, I have a question, he said, not looking her in the eye. She looked at him. What am I? He asked, seeming to steel himself before finishing the question. He still hadn't looked her in the eye. What do you mean? What am I? Am I a demon or a human or both? He asked. She grinned. Be proud. You're a full-blooded demon. He started at her confused. But my parents were, she cut him off. A few thousand generations back, a lesser demon was sealed within your clan. This demon allowed your clan to have unrivaled stamina, and the ability to quickly learn any jutsu. The only drawback was, if it was too easy, you can't do it. So, you actually have a bloodline. But not one like the Haruno's, Hyuga's, or Uchiha's bloodline, she said, grinning at his confused face. The Haruno's? What's their bloodline? The pink hair? He asked, grinning. She snickered. Hi, their hair is a part of the bloodline. But luckily for the males, it only goes through the female side of the bloodline. But they also have an inner persona that can take over their body, take information from their conscious and subconscious mind and keep it. So if they're being tortured, they won't give information because they can't, she said, grinning. Naruto gaped. Don't look so surprised, I know you knew at least a minor part of that. I also know that you aren't as stupid as you act or look, she said, looking him in the eyes. Damn, you cheated, he said, glaring at her. She just stuck her tongue out. Naruto quickly reached out and grabbed it. You want to keep your fingers? You want to keep your fingers? She said, glaring at him. He just stuck his tongue out, but quickly pulled it back in before she could grab it. What's wrong? Fox got your tongue? Naruto snickered evilly. Okay, let me put it this way. Do you want to keep being a boy? Do you want to keep being a boy? She asked, eagerly flexing her fingers. He quickly let go. You! Fox spit. He wiped it on her. She brought her knee up and nailed him. Try that again, and there won't be a place to hit next time, she said, glaring. Now go see Sakura, she's about to walk out. She snapped her fingers and he was suddenly looking up at a ceiling. Naruto groaned. He was still sore from having his butt kicked. Sakura turned back and looked at him, clipboard in hand. Naruto? She said, turning to look at him. He stared back and nodded slightly. She suddenly walked over to him and punched him in the stomach. Where's Sasuke? She screamed, then punched him again. With Orochimaru by now, he said sadly. She punched him in the face this time. Why isn't he with us? Because he nearly killed me. I couldn't get him, he said, not portraying any emotion. Liar! She screamed. You let him go, didn't you? You let him keep going because you were jealous. He was better than you, so you just let him go. Then you beat yourself up just to make it look like you fought. But really, you just let him go so you wouldn't have any competition. You just wanted to make yourself look good, and now you don't have anyone to show how weak you are like he did. He was growling, and it was quickly getting louder. The villagers are right. You are a demon, she said, glaring at him, her eyes full of hate. That was the final straw. She made to axe kick him in the stomach, but he caught it. Let me tell you something, Pinky, he said, clenching his hand over her foot. She twitched a little. But first I want to know. Where did you hear that? Was it you who carved demon into that table? Or do you know why they call me demon? Who didn't hear it? I actually heard it when they rioted and tried to kill you. I think I was 8 at the time. No, I didn't carve demon into the table. Dr. Eisen did that, and I don't know why they call you a demon. Sorry, couldn't help the bleach guy. I hate him. By the way, don't own bleach either, she said, sneering at him. He tightened his grip on her foot even more. Let me tell you a story. The Kyuubi wasn't killed by the Yondaime. She couldn't be killed. Her name wasn't even Kyuubi, it was Hitomi. Hitomi couldn't be killed, so he had to seal it in a baby whose chakra coils weren't fully developed. He finished there, but didn't let go of her foot. How do you know it's a she and her name's Hitomi? She gasped as she realized how he knew. You, he just nodded. You are a demon. With that he lost all control and sent her into a wall. That was all he could take from her. He hit the nurse button on his bed, and instantly a nurse was there. Actually, it was Tsunade. What's going on in here? She screamed. Get that demon out of here! Sakura screamed back. Tsunade's eyes widened. You told her? She said, looking at Naruto. He just nodded and stood up. Having forgotten to get a new gown, being that he also didn't have a choice at the time, he was still wearing the black clothes Hitomi had given him. He pulled up his mask and walked out. Naruto, wait, she said, grabbing his shoulder. He stopped. I'll let you go home, but this doesn't leave this room. None of this happened. I'll kill you! Shut up. With that he punched her in the stomach, efficiently knocking her out. Naruto! Tsunade yelled at him. He looked at her. What the hell is wrong with you? She took it one step too far. Now I need to see a Dr. Eisen, he said, grinning. She just pointed down the hall towards the break room. A few minutes later, she saw Dr. Eisen go flying down the hallway. Naruto walked back home, and anyone who said demon got punched. He was in a bad mood. Sure, he could deal with the villagers, but not when a friend turns on him like that. He then turned and went over to the Hokage Tower. He needed out of this place. Hey Naruto, guess what I'm going to do? What? I'm going to read the author's note at the bottom, because it's important and involves the readers. Naruto and Hitomi make gay-like poses and continue with the story. Ba-chan, he said, slamming his hands on her desk. I want out of this village. Send me on a training mission or something. Anything, just get me out. She sighed and put her head in her hand for a second before looking back up at him. I'm sorry Naruto, I can't. The council says that you can't so much as be taken off active duty for a second. They've locked your status because you couldn't bring back Sasuke. You can't even quit. They said if you do, it'll be considered treason, and they'll execute you," she said, the sadness evident in her voice. "They can't do that. Who's gonna stop them?" she said. It was then he realized she was right. Who was going to stop them? They're the top level of the Konoha government. He sighed in defeat. Out of the kindness of their hearts, she scoffed, "They've allowed you the day off. Have fun," she said. It was evident she wasn't happy. He opened her window before she could say anything else, and jumped. Using his chakra, he landed lightly, and kept going. "Your father wouldn't have allowed this," came a voice. He realized it was Hitomi's and remembered that she had made it so that they could communicate mentally. Who was my father anyway? The yandame, he could have gotten them to change their minds. Sadly, they nobody likes Tsunade like they did with the yandame, she said, but her voice had a hint of sadness this time. Naruto was shocked. The yandame was his father? He looked up at the Hokage monument, and saw his dad looking down at him. Naruto couldn't look him in the eye. Sure, it was carved, but to him, it was his dad. Naruto decided that instead of going home, he was going to the forest to train. He changed paths again, and headed towards the closest training ground. Hinata was walking down the street, looking for her teammates, when she saw a black-clad figure and followed him for a while, before realizing it was Naruto. So she followed him at a closer range than before, due to the fact that she had nothing to fear. She saw he was headed to a training ground. When he got here, he stopped and sat down, before suddenly making a Kagebushin. Then, the Kagebushin turned red before turning into a knee-high single-tailed fox. It started skipping around before stopping and looking at Naruto. It yipped, and Naruto pulled out a kunai. Hinata gasped, thinking he was going to kill it. But instead he cut his palm and dabbed a finger in the blood before drawing on his arms and ankles with it. She blushed as he pulled his shirt off and drew symbols, kanji, and designs across himself, before making seals. Tiger, ram, rat, monkey, ox, snake, hare, dragon, and ended with another tiger. The blood glowed blue before it turned black and faded. Then he wrote the kanji for 100 over all the places he wrote his blood on. Then he did another tiger seal and groaned. Naruto made an attempt at standing, but fell out on his face. There was a dent in the ground where he landed. That was when she realized that he made weight seals across his body. That way he didn't have to wear weights, and they were 100 pounds each. Hinata added it up in her head and realized that they all equaled around 500 pounds. The fox yipped again, and she watched as he lay there, trying to get up. But the weight was too much, so he couldn't even get his arms in a position to push himself up. She came back the next day, and found the fox asleep, as well as Naruto. He hadn't budged. This continued until the third day, when she saw him with his arms up, pushing himself up slowly. She watched until he was finally standing upright. She smiled and walked away, going to look for her teammates again. Naruto had finally made it to the training ground. He found a tree and leaned his back against it, before making a Kagebushin and thinking to Hitomi, "I've got an idea," before transferring the demon fox to his bushin. Of course, it was only a small bit of the power she originally had, but it was still enough. She jumped and ran around, did a few flips, and sat down, looking at him before yipping a thanks, but strangely, he could understand her. "Thanks, Kit. If I can go to my human form, or when you visit me again, I think I'll have to express my thanks in a better way." She winked at him, making Naruto blush a little. "So what do you want me to do, sensei?" he thought, without stopping to wonder if she could even hear him. "I'll give you the knowledge you need to do this. You're going to make weights." Suddenly, he knew what she was talking about, and how to do it. He pulled the kunai out, cut his palms, and started making the needed seals to create the weights. Once he finished, he went through some seals, and then marked the weight on each that she told him to put. Sealing it with another hand seal, he instantly felt his body sink into the dirt slightly. When Naruto tried to stand up, he fell flat on his face. "Once you can get up, we'll move on," was all Hitomi said. So he struggled. By the second day, around 10 probably, he heard footsteps, but was too sunk into the ground to look up. By 5 he'd gotten his hands in the push-up position. And finally, on the third day, he was standing upright. "Hitomi, I'm up," was all he said. Hitomi looked at him through sleepy eyes, having just been awoken by the sound of his voice, and grinned at him in a fox-like way. "I swear you're gonna make me proud, Kit," she said simply. He blushed, and looked up seeing Hinata walk off. "Don't, Kit," she said, as he started to take a step towards her. "She'll want to talk, and you don't have time. You're in training," she said simply. "Why do you call me Kit?" he asked, looking at her. Would you prefer Kikusuji, husband? She asked, grinning evilly. Naruto turned a little red. It's a term of affection, of course. If you want, I could call you Naruto Koibito, lover. Naruto turned a dark crimson color at that one. She started laughing. Kit'll work, he said, stuttering slightly. Good, now that we've got that sorted out, go home. He nodded and tried to take a step and nearly fell on his face again, having forgotten about his weights. Damn it! He screamed. Once you get to Tsunade's office, we'll move on, she said, grinning. Hitomi got up and followed him. After about 2 hours, he finally got up to her office. He was worn out, but he couldn't sit down. Opening the door, he hobbled in and closed it. Tsunade looked up and saw Naruto and a fox that yipped at him before he did a few hand signs, and the whole room glowed a neon green color before fading. Konnichiwa, Bachan, he said, grinning. She roared and punched him, expecting him to go flying. But instead she was slid backwards a few feet, while Naruto slid back about 6 inches. Huh! Tsunade stared at Naruto with a deer-in-the-headlights look. I weigh around 620 pounds right now, Bachan. I don't think that's gonna work, he said, laughing slightly. He jerked his thumb towards the fox, says that I need all this extra weight and made me haul myself from training ground 8 to here. It's a half mile. He yelled the last sentence at the fox, who was suddenly eye level with Naruto. You're gonna thank me by next week, Hitomi said, grinning. She bowed to Tsunade. Konnichiwa, Bachan, as Kit calls you. Kit? Isn't that a fox term? Hitomi was grinning, her large canines showing, and was flexing her claws slightly, attracting Tsunade's attention to them. You're Hitomi. Of course, according to all your damn books, I'm Kyuubi. You've really gotta change those. I don't go around calling you all humans. Well, actually I do, but the point is, that's not right, she said, pointing a finger at Tsunade, who was staring at her, gaping, then turned and hit Naruto in the face, sending him on his butt and cracking her floor. One floorboard even shot up and got stuck in the concrete ceiling above their heads. Ugh! Ba-chan. I just got up. It took me 3 days to stand up, he yelled, trying to stand up. Finally, Hitomi took pity on him and lifted him up by the shirt collar like he weighed nothing. He huffed. That's not right. But yes, I am the Kyuubi, also known as Hitomi, sensei of Kit here, she said, jerking her thumb at Naruto. I demand that he be released on a dual objective mission. One objective is to train and get stronger. The other is to use that training to capture and return Sasuke, she said simply. Oh, and Naruto, for now, you can release those seals. He screamed in arigato and formed a ram seal. Whoa, that's weird. I feel like I'm as light as a feather. You might as well be. Your body is now used to about, say 150 pounds of extra weight, she said, grinning. Tsunade grabbed him by the front of his shirt. You let her out? She screamed in his face. What gave you that bright idea to break the seal placed and let her out? Were you dropped on your head as a child? Naruto pushed her away. Yes, it wasn't my idea, yes. But if you'll look at her tail, you'll see she's only got one. The other 8 are stored away in what's left of the seal. So, even if she did go on a rampage, it would be easy to stop her. Second, she's not going to do anything. Tsunade wasn't convinced, but she decided to tolerate her. Fine, but I still can't let Naruto go out of the village. He can't even do a high-ranking D mission right now. They all have to be of the lowest pay. Naruto's jaw dropped, while the Kyuubi sighed. Fine. See ya, was all she said, as she grabbed Naruto, whose seat's legs snapped on the spot, and dragged him out of the room, after activating his weights for him. When they left, her room glowed red. Tsunade realized that they had soundproofed her room. So now what are we gonna do? Naruto asked Hitomi. She grinned. We're gonna go pack your bags and get a good night's rest, she yipped, now in her fox form. He heard a villager mutter something. A demon fox and another fox. They deserve each other in the deepest, hottest part of hell. Naruto screamed, and tackled the man. The man screamed as his ribs broke, due to the 600-pound teenager on his chest. Naruto slowly got back on his feet, and made it to his apartment. When he did, Hitomi led him to his room. Naruto had a voice in the back of his head that said it was supposed to be the other way around, but when he got in there, he found all of his clothes being burned. All of his jumpsuits were now gone, and on his bed were clothes he was wearing, except now they had the red Uzumaki spiral on the back. Okay, you pack those, I'll get the crap from your drawers. Naruto blinked. How about we do it the other way around? My boxers are in there. So? I've watched you grow up through your own eyes. There's nothing in there I haven't seen before. Naruto blushed as he caught the double meaning to it. She just laughed. Turning serious again, she looked at his clock. Okay, it's 3 o'clock now. We don't have to leave for another 9 hours. Turn off your weights, we've got work to do. He nodded and turned them off, before running into the kitchen and getting food for his stomach that had been empty for 2 days. In those 9 hours, one of which was spent eating, he learned to turn into his full demon form, which she told him was extremely hard, but found out after he was finished, they were the easiest thing to do for a demon, but she knew if she told him that, he wouldn't try as hard, thus making him have more difficulty with it. Right now, if someone looked outside they would see 2 red foxes running through the streets, at a breakneck speed, towards the west side gate. One was blood red, the other was an orange-red hybrid color. The lighter red one suddenly stopped and yipped. The darker red one barked back, with a more commanding back. Lighter fox just stuck its tongue out and jumped up some stairs that went up the side of an apartment complex. Darker fox growled and followed its partner. The light fox suddenly molded into a teen boy. The darker one molded into a beautiful young woman. Naruto and Hitomi stood at Irika's doorstep. Naruto knocked, and they waited a few minutes before he opened the door. Naruto? Was all he got out before he was tackled inside of his house, and Hitomi came in behind him, quickly sealing the door shut and soundproofed the room. Irika quickly jumped up and pulled a kunai out of seemingly nowhere. Who are you? He said, getting in a fighting stance. Naruto just grinned. It's me, Irika-sensei, he said, walking up to him. Prove it, he said, still not dropping his stance. The first day I was at the academy, I got bored and turned your clothes hot pink, he said, laughing a little. That just didn't stop being funny. Irika frowned and tossed his kunai onto his coffee table. So what was that all about? And who's she? I'm Hitomi, or better known as the Kyuubi, she said, with a sad look on her face. She remembered this one. His parents had sacrificed themselves for a friend. She suddenly walked up and hugged him. She whispered only 2 words in his ear. I'm sorry. Naruto's face was one of confusion, while Irika's was one of fear. Why? Why did you kill them? Irika asked, talking about his parents. I didn't mean to. I knew they had a kid, so I tried to avoid them. But to save a comrade, they jumped in the way of my fire and took the hit instead of the one I aimed it for, she said sadly. They broke apart, and Irika looked at the 2 of them. You never answered my question. What is this all about? We sealed your door so that nobody breaks in, and soundproofed the room so nobody will hear what I'm about to say. Irika nodded silently. Me and her leaving. We should be back in a few years. She's going to train me until I have the power to wield more than the 2 tails I have now. Also with making me all around stronger. After that's done, I'm going to get Sasuke and come back. If I kill Orochimaru, that's just a bonus. I need you to tell Tsunade what I just told you. She already knows about Hitomi. The said girl suddenly glowed red, before turning into a Bushin who poofed into a plume of smoke. The room glowed red, and the door glowed purple. It's not safe to talk anymore. The chakra supply I gave her ran out, he added, looking at his sensei's confused face. Now I've gotta leave. Bye, sensei, he said before Irika hugged him. When did you find a brain? Irika asked. I always had one. A dumb demon has a chance in life, because nobody accepts anything amazing from an idiot. But a smart demon doesn't have a chance, Naruto said simply. With that, he turned and walked out the door. Irika watched in shock at the closed door, before sitting on his couch and running what just happened through his head again. Okay, so the kid who was always a dope is going to leave town, train until he's probably a 9-tailed demon, defeat Sasuke, probably kill Orochimaru, and come back where he's going to probably die. Irika got up and ran for the Hokage's office. He had to tell her before someone sent out hunter needs. After he got away from the complex a little, Naruto created another Bushin, and turned it into Hitomi. Good Lord Kit! How much chakra did you give that last Bushin? She asked, bug-eyed. I only had enough to seal the Hokage's office, and enough to keep me out of chakra exhaustion. The rest all went into that Bushin, he said, grinning. You're stupid. I was wondering how that thing was holding out so long, she screamed, before Naruto pinched her lips together. Quiet, remember? She nodded, and they both turning into their single-tailed full demon forms, before running at the western gate. They had already wasted half an hour. They had to get out now. The next day, an alarm was heard throughout Konoha. An alarm calling all shinobi to the Hokage Tower. All shinobi, and even some nearby civilians, gathered around the dome-like Hokage Tower. I'm sorry to report, Tsunade sniffed and wiped the tears from her eyes. I'm sorry to report that last night, at 2400 hours, Uzumaki Naruto ran from this village, without mine nor the council's permission. His classmates gasped, as well as the jounin who knew him. If he is found, he must be bound and be in one piece and alive. He is to then be brought back to be interrogated, and then he will be. She choked on her words for a second before trying again. He will be interrogated and executed. Sakura gasped. No. That couldn't be true. Naruto not around? Nobody would see him doing laps around Konoha or flying across the rooftops anymore. No, that couldn't be true. Naruto wasn't supposed to leave. He was supposed to stay there and be mad at her for yelling at him. But he wasn't supposed to leave. It had been a little over a day since they'd left Konoha. Naruto had long exhausted his chakra, and yet, somehow, here he was, still running across the tree branches. How much further? Naruto asked. Just a little more, was Hitomi's reply. We've got to get out of Fire Nation first. They won't believe that we got out in one night, and think that we're still around Konoha somewhere. Also, we need a change of course, she said, waiting for Naruto to get all that. Then she turned and went southwest for a few hundred yards, before finally stopping and landing on the ground below, panting. That was a long run, Naruto panted at her. She just grinned and stuck her hand out. Kunai. He frowned and handed her one. Whenever she had a kunai, it scared Naruto because he never knew what she was going to do. She drew it across her hand, and let it bleed into a puddle in her palm. Then, she cupped her hands, and let the puddle grow until it was a good-sized amount in her hands. She suddenly threw it out in an open area free of everything but grass. Hitomi-chan, Naruto had taken to calling her that in their training. What was the point of that? He asked, but was answered by the ground rumbling as a slab of earth came up, making the mouth of a cave. This, Kit, is my family's training home, she said, grinning. Naruto tilted his head to one side, trying to figure it out. It's got to have my family's blood to open, but I don't have any family, so my own blood has to do all the opening. So we're gonna live in a cave until I can find Sasuke? Till we find Sasuke, and yes. She started walking in there, and Naruto, not wanting to be left behind, quickly followed her. After he walked in, the mouth of the cave sank back in, and instantly lights came on inside the cave. The first thing he noticed as he followed her was that it was huge. He couldn't see the top of the cave, despite the lights. Walking along, he saw an area branch off, that looked like a massive battlefield. Hitomi must have noticed the look on his face because she said, "That's our training field. You're going to end up treating that like your own bedroom, because you're gonna spend most of your time in there." As they walked on, he took notice of the making of the cave. It seemed that it wasn't dug out, but instead compact dirt. It was as though an incredible force just separated the dirt with enough force to turn it to stone, which was what had happened. They kept walking, and on the way, they passed a bathroom, a weight room for our half-demon forms, she told him as they walked by, a kitchen, and finally, they reached what looked like a dead end, except with a room on the left and right, and one in front of them. She pointed at the right side rooms. "That's yours. I'm right across the hall," she said, walking into her own room. "You've got 2 days. Learn the layout of the place and rest up. Meanwhile, I'm out of chakra," was all she got out before she disappeared in a plume of smoke. "Well, I got us here anyway," was the last he heard before he collapsed in the middle of the floor from chakra exhaustion. When he opened his eyes, he was in a room this time. Looking around, he realized where he was. Hitomi's room. He was actually quite comfortable. Last time, he didn't notice how springy the floor was or how warm it was or that it was laying on his chest. Looking down, he saw Hitomi, resting comfortably with her head on his chest, dead asleep. Naruto turned deep red, and sighed. Well, there was nothing he could do now. She was probably exhausted from that run too. He woke again later, to find that they had changed positions. Her back was against him, but this time he realized that she was awake. She heard his breathing increase a little, and grinned, knowing he had woken up. "You know, you've got to visit me more often," she said, turning over to face him and grinned wider at his now red face. "You sure blush a lot around me, you do know that, right?" she said, and had to hold in her laughter as his face turned even darker red, a feat she hadn't thought was possible. "I wonder why. Surely it isn't that Kit isn't used to any female attention." She put her hand on her chest and gasped. "No, not someone as cute as you, Kit." Hitomi was about to burst out laughing at this point. When she pinched and pulled his cheek, while saying her last sentence, the look on his face finally did it. She burst out laughing. Naruto just frowned. "Not funny," was all he ground out, too busy willing the blush away to say anything else. Suddenly, his blush faded as a serious look came across his face. "How strong will I be by the time we finish training?" he asked. Hitomi sighed. Honestly, I don't know. You'll be stronger, I can tell you that. We should at least double your chakra supply right now. 500-pound weights will be nothing by the time we're done. You'll learn what you need for becoming Hokage. I'll have to teach you about sealing so Orochimaru can't 5-prong seal us again. She growled his name a little. That had seriously hurt. She said all of this slowly, trying to not overdo how strong he should be. And when you wake up, I'll have a surprise for you that we can't do in here. What is it? He asked, nearly bouncing on his side. Hitomi stopped him before he shook the bed down. Now if I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise, would it? She said before a mischievous smile came onto her face that showed that she was truly the Kyuubi. But before I'll train you, I first want you to pay me. Naruto groaned and reached for his back pocket, but Hitomi grabbed his wrist. Not exactly what I was talking about, she said, her grin widening as she pulled his mask down slowly. I don't want you to wear this unless we leave the cave. Naruto nodded slowly, his face turning a little pink at her actions. Then it turned blood red as she slowly moved her head towards his. Slowly coming closer, and finally finding her mark, she kissed Naruto full on the lips. She slowly deepened the kiss, letting him get used to it. He did, rather quickly, and kissed her back. She nibbled on his bottom lip, causing him to gasp, but then she stopped, panting slightly. Well, damn. Looks like you're waking up, she said, pointing to his hand that was fading in and out of existence. I'll take that as pay, she said, as he finally faded away, and opened his eyes to a black ceiling that he still couldn't see. He sighed. If only he hadn't woken up. Wait, what would have happened had he not woken up? He blushed again over the thought. I really do that too much. If I'm not careful, I'll start stuttering and pushing my fingers together whenever I say anything. Or possibly grow a bikugan. He chuckled at his own joke, before getting up and walking down the cave to the kitchen. Hey Kit! Let me out, she said in his head. He just grinned. Why should I? 'Cause I said so, that's why. Now let me out of here now if you ever want to pay rent again, she screamed in his head. He quickly made a cross symbol with his fingers and make a Kagebushin. Then sent his demon chakra and Hitomi in it. Much better. So help me if you do that again, you're paying rent in cold hard cash, you hear me? She yelled. He nodded quickly. Now, let's go fix something to eat. I'm starved. Is that even possible? He asked, looking at her. You're a Bushin, with no physical body at the moment because it's sealed inside my stomach, and in my mind I'm assuming you don't have to eat. She grinned sheepishly. Well, not exactly, but food sounds good, she said, pushing him in the back towards the kitchen. Plus, the sooner we eat, the sooner we can start the torture. She coughed. I mean, training, we can start the training. They finally made it down to the kitchen, and she pushed him down in a chair. Since you paid rent so well, I thought I'd make breakfast. Hitomi then turned around and started pulling things out of cabinets, boiling water, pulling bowls out, tossed Naruto some chopsticks that landed where his hand was a second earlier, and stuck into the table. Amazing thing is, they were wooden chopsticks. After a quick sorry, Kit, she continued. Finally, after about 10 more minutes, she sat a bowl of miso ramen in front of him. Itadakimasu, they both said before they started eating. Naruto got one mouthful of noodle, and instantly decided he was in heaven. He didn't know what it was, but this was amazing. Holy crap, he said to her. She smiled. I'm going to take that as a compliment, she said, grinning. He nodded vigorously. How'd you get it so good? Toilet water, she said, and started snickering at the look that came across his face. He stuck his tongue and she grabbed it. Well now, what do we have here? A chance to get even maybe? She grinned evilly. Ah. Metunj. Sorry, didn't catch that? What's wrong anyway? Kitsune got your tongue? She snickered at her own little joke. I want my Roman, he more or less begged. She sighed and let go. You're no fun. You'll get over it. He grinned before setting his chopsticks down, and turning up the whole bowl, not wanting to take the time to eat it with chopsticks. He sat it down, and went to get him another bowl. After 2 bowls for Hitomi, and 10 for Naruto, they finally moved on to training. Walking down towards the training room, Hitomi turned to him. Remember what happened last time you got a nosebleed? She asked, her face turning a little pink at the memory of what she did. Surprisingly, Naruto didn't blush. He just nodded. That's what happens when I see human blood. I'm more or less like a vampire. Except I'll kill you and eat you, not suck your blood. So, while we train, if you're bleeding, don't let me see. I'm going to try to work with as little sharp objects as possible, but we're going to have to work with swords eventually, she said, biting her lower lip in worry. They got in the training room and she turned to Naruto. Kit, I'll tell you right now. Don't expect any mercy from me. Now, activate your weights, she said, and frowned when he didn't do anything but grin stupidly. They already are. Okay, I'll need you to explain this to me, because I'm confused. How can you move so casually if they're activated? I didn't turn them off when we were running from Konoha. She slapped her forehead with her hand. So, if we were attacked by Hunter Nin, you were just gonna tackle them or something? Hi. She slapped her forehead again, and dragged it down her face. Fine. Well, let's see how well you work in them. With that, she punched him, sending him flying. He quickly got on his feet and ran at her. She noticed that they were activated like he said, because he would normally go faster. He threw a punch, which she blocked, and blocked the kick that followed it. They sprung apart, before charging again, swiping at each other. Hitomi caught him in the stomach, and he doubled over as the air left his body. Staying in a sparring stance, she waited for him to catch his breath again. He stood up straight, and copied her stance, before reverse side kicking her head. It was a fast kick, and sent her sprawling, but it didn't have the effect it did when she returned the favor, slamming his back into the wall. She didn't waste time in charging him again, and grabbing the front of his shirt, throwing him back across the room. He laid on the ground, as she walked up to him. Come on and get up, I didn't hit you that hard. He grunted as he slowly stood up. He tried to sweep her feet out from under her, but he didn't move fast enough and was sent skidding across the room. He got up and charged her again, this time with a Rasengan. He thrust it at her arm, which she moved, and he turned in midair to try and hit her back. She set some chakra in her hand to spin in the same direction as the Rasengan, and stole it from him, before charging it with some of her own chakra and slamming it into his stomach. Tomorrow he would bear a spiral-shaped bruise there. He slammed into the wall again, kicking up some debris. He stood up and had an idea. However, he had to do it before the dust cleared. Naruto charged and punched at Hitomi, who put an arm up to block it. Suddenly, Shuriken shot out and nearly took out Naruto, who knew they were coming, but ducked just in time. He thought she would have dodged too. But he started in shock at her shuriken impaled body laying on the ground. She wasn't breathing. Naruto quickly got over to her, and started pulling the shuriken out of her body. He closed her nose and started breathing for her, as he prayed that she would breathe again. Then he found out that the ceiling was in fact made of rock, just like he thought. You bastard! I'll kill you! What made you think that it was a good idea to throw shuriken at me? For that, you're doubling your weights. One of those things went into my lung. I was dead. If I were human, I would have died, not even if you were breathing for me or not. You're lucky my powers keep healing me once I die, or I'd come back just to kill you. At this point, he fell from the ceiling. He stood up and slowly walked over to her. Hitomi-sensei? He asked questioningly. He made a ram seal disable the weights. What? She snapped. He ran over and hugged her, and silent tears rolled down his face. Hitomi stiffened. I thought I'd killed you, he said quietly, before he buried his head in her shoulder, his sobs no longer silent. She stared at him in shock. She'd known Naruto all his life, and she had never, ever seen him cry. Hitomi got over her shock, and relaxed as she put her arms around him. Kit, it's okay, she cooed quietly. After a few minutes, she scooted them back to a wall, and rested her back against that while she waited for his sobs to subside. Hitomi continued cooing soft words of comfort, until they subsided. He sat up and rolled over, and was resting with his back against the wall next to her. Training's cancelled for the day. We'll start again tomorrow. There's not much to do here except SLE-. Sleep, yeah I know. That's why I cancelled it. You need the break. Now come on. She cut him off, standing up, then pulling Naruto up with her by the hand. Hitomi led him down the hall until they came to her room. He noticed it was nicely decorated, and looked exactly like the room she had in his head. She led him over to the bed and pushed him down on it. She popped his shoes off, and her own, then walked around to the side and got in next to him. I thought you'd like some company. If you wake up first, wake me up and we'll finish training. She set her back against his chest and pulled one of his arms over her shoulder. Hitomi turned her head to kiss his cheek, but noticed he was already asleep. Smiling slightly to herself, she turned over and went to sleep herself. Naruto jumped up out of bed. He dreamed of being in a theater where a giant skeleton wearing a tuxedo had been trying to get him, and he'd forgotten he was a shinobi, so he had to try to beat the skeleton to the door, but that stupid skeleton kept beating him to it. Plus it was scary looking. Yes, I really did have a dream like that. I nearly fell off my top bunk. By the way, I don't own The Nightmare Before Christmas. He looked around, and saw that Hitomi wasn't there. He got up and put his sandals back on. Naruto stood up and walked down the hall. His bedroom door was open, so she wasn't in there. The library door was still closed, and Hitomi told him that if she was in there, she'd leave the door open. He continued walking down the hall. The bathroom door was open and empty. Kitchen was empty, so that just left the training room. Naruto walked in and found her training. It was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. There were about 50 logs set on their ends around her. Each kick broke it into splinters before it could even move backwards from the force. But that wasn't what was so amazing. It was the way she moved. It was as though Hitomi was dancing. Each move gracefully performed, as she whipped her feet around like a helicopter, cutting through 3 logs. The punches were thrown out, and swung over her head, getting ready to hit another log, each beautifully done. Finally, she blew out a giant blast of chakra, releasing all of her tenketsu at once. She stood there panting, the wood completely destroyed. He felt her chakra supply about to run out, so he fed her a bit more to keep her around. She slowly stopped panting and he saw a confused look run across her face. She must not have noticed him yet. So he did what he knew would be the right thing to do in this situation. Naruto tackled Hitomi, who squealed. Yes. The almighty Kyuubi no Kitsune, monstrous destroyer, demon of Konoha, mistress of pain, squealed. She turned around and slapped Naruto across the face. Hentai! She screamed at him. He spun off like a boomerang, and even came back after hitting a side wall, skidding to a stop where he started. Owl! Naruto moaned as he laid there. She put her foot on his back and held him down. You freakin' sicko! Do you realize where your hands went? Naruto thought back, but couldn't remember. Nope. I don't believe this. My own student feels me up and doesn't even realize it. She muttered under her breath. He thought a little harder and turned dark crimson. She was right. Damn it. That's the last straw. I'm doubling your weights. With that, she went through some seals too fast for him to see, and Naruto instantly felt his weights double. Get up, she said, looking down at him harshly. I'm sorry, Hito-sensei. I swear I didn't mean to, he yelled, not able to move anything but his neck. Hitomi was grinning at the fact that he couldn't move, but she turned deep red at her new nickname. Since when did they have pet names? Oh right, Kit. Yeah, and now you're sorry. Well, you can be sorry in your head. She snapped her fingers and the surrounding area flickered a few times before it became the dark, damp place inside his head. I've set it up so that every hour in here is only a second outside. So you've got plenty of time to get up. Every physical movement you make in here, you make outside, she said, grinning. He started struggling to push himself up. His head was stuck to its side right now, and he noticed something. Where were the bars? Hey Hito-chan? He started, waiting for her to give a response to show her heard him. HM? What happened to the bars? She turned to look at him. You mean you don't remember? She said, looking at him in surprise. He started to shake his head, but realized he couldn't, so he voiced that fact that he didn't. You did it. You came in here and said, Kyuubi no Kitsune, I, your jailer, Naruto Uzumaki, release you from the first seal. You shall still be bound by the second seal unless a lethal attack comes to the second seal. When you said that, it officially released the first seal. He frowned. I must have missed the memo on that one. I don't remember a thing, he said, frowning, then remembered why he was there and continued trying to get up. Now that I think of it. Your eyes did have this blank look to them. She gasped. Orochimaru. I'd bet he set up a plan so that when the 5-pronged seal was released, a mental image of you was projected here to let me out. Naruto sighed. Now I have a reason to thank him. So the only way to let you out is to be killed by a blow to my seal. Well, crap, he said, groaning. Finally, he screamed in annoyance and blasted chakra through his tenketsu in his arms. When he did, it blasted him up like a rocket and he was standing upright. Hitomi grinned and clapped. I was wondering if you'd ever think of that. Good job. Only problem is, you're going to be alone once you get out of here. That blast just destroyed me, she said. Naruto came to a little while later, to find himself in his room. He found that Hitomi was sleeping, as she had said she would from exhaustion from her training this morning, due to the light snores coming from his mind. He got up and created a bushin, and told it to get into the bed. After it fell asleep, he pushed Hitomi into the bushin, and grinned. If things went according to plan, she would think she escaped. He left the room, pulling the door shut, and snickered evilly, before turning and going into the library. If he kept studying sealing, he might be able to make that a reality, and not a prank. Hitomi yawned and stretched. Feel around for Naruto, she found he wasn't there. Groaning, she opened her eyes and looked around. Wait, this wasn't her room or Naruto's head. She frowned, catching on. Naruto's trying to play pranks again. I'll kill him, she thought as she swung her legs out of bed. Walking out, she saw the library door was open, and walked in. She heard a book slam from the other side of the library, so she headed that way. When Hitomi walked up to him, she noticed his nose started bleeding. Why were you naked? Naruto screamed. She looked down, then back up at him. Because you did the bushin wrong, dip shit. Now give me your shirt. What? Why? Gimme. Go get one of your own. Look, I only wear clothes so you won't freak out. Now give me your shirt, unless you want me to wear it with you still in it. His nose shot out some more blood, as he pulled it over his head and tossed it to her. Have fun. Oh, I will. Hitomi pulled the shirt over her head. Suddenly, she tackled him. Your nose is bleeding, she said, growling slightly, before licking it off. To make matters worse, or better, he could see down her shirt. Actually, he could see down his shirt, that she was wearing, but the point was, he was just tackled by a hot naked seductress, who was licking the blood off his nose. Boy, was he screwed. Naruto paled slightly at the choice of words. That shot a last gush of blood out, then it stopped. She got off him and frowned. Then stepped on his stomach. Quit staring, sicko, she said, grinning. Then turned around and walked out, leaving Naruto shirtless. Naruto turned and walked back to the table he was sitting at, before opening the book. A book on seal breaking, to be specific. After a few minutes, he slammed the book shut. Damn it! He cried. There was no way to do it. His father's seal was too strong. The only way to break the seal was to take a fatal blow to it. But because of Hitomi's powers, that wasn't possible. Speaking of Hitomi, she walked in just as that thought finished. Put your little bookies up and come eat. Then she became serious. We've got to talk. With that, she turned and walked down the hallway. Naruto got up and followed her. The little adventure lasted all the way to the kitchen. He found some rice balls, and sat down at the table. She sat down across from him. You know how I told you about you being a full demon between me and your dad, right? He nodded. She opened her mouth to say something, but her cut her off. I'm assuming it was a weaker Kyuubi than you, but had a high IQ. Her eyes widened slightly. How'd he figure that out? She'd searched his mind the second she was released, and found no one but herself in there. I can look at something like that light bulb, he said, pointing at the ceiling. Yes, they have electricity. It's run through a chakra supply coming from a self-powered generator. This comes from the fact that it takes chakra to make chakra. So a small supply of it is set aside to make more, and the rest is made to power the place. This was my idea that I made up on the spot. Steal it and die. I know that it's coming from a secret room underground that is run by a self-powered chakra generator, with a 100,000 volt output. I can instantly analyze anything with as little as a glance, he said, taking his eyes away from the light bulb. Then Naruto glared at something before swiping his hands through the air, as though he were trying to catch a small bug. What are you doing? Hitomi asked him. Trying to catch the little colorful dots. You actually amaze a 500-year-old Kyuubi, but sit there and try to catch little dots made from your now broken eyes. He just groaned. They left. Come back, little dots, come back. Hitomi started beating her head into the table. After a second, she quit, and loudly cleared her throat, bringing his attention back to her. You're correct about your assumption. Yes, it was a wise demon, specifically a two-tailed Kyuubi. So that alone made you a Hanyu. That's where I come into the story. With my blood, it makes you a full-fledged Yukai, an untrained one, mind you, but a Yukai nonetheless. Hitomi sighed. The problem is my blood is dormant inside your body still. To activate it, I have to kill you, she said, resisting the tear threatening to fall down her face. Naruto was shocked. And how exactly does that work? He asked, still in shock. I pull out a fang. When I do, the inside instantly degrades so that all that's left is the enamel. Then I fill it with blood, and she stopped. Over time, Hitomi had come to love this boy, whom she had originally had motives to murder when she was first sealed. She couldn't kill this boy. Yet she would have to. I stab your heart with it. You instantly die, and my blood soaks into your heart. It should force your heart to beat again, sending my blood through your body, and making you a full demon. He nodded slowly. There's only one drawback: nobody's ever lived through it. There have been many attempts on Hanyu from Yukai, but it's never once worked. The theory is perfect. The problem is when they're supposed to come back to life. They don't. Naruto stared at her in shock, but eventually overcame it, and steeled himself. I'll do it. Those 3 simple words. That sentence was with the list of sentences that can change people's lives. Hitomi shook her head. No, he didn't accept. Kit. I have to tell you something before you say that. Because you didn't just say that. The Kyuubi sighed, before looking him in the eye. I love you. Now Naruto's eyes widened. He replayed her voice saying that over and over in his head, and only one response could come to mind. I love you too, he said slowly. But her eyes widened. He rejected her? Hitomi could feel the tears welling up inside her. I don't know. I want to do this. I don't know. I need to go think. With that he stood up, kissed her. She felt passion, love, and fear in it all. He then walked down the hall. Despite it all, she still smiled. He wasn't rejecting her. He was scared. Then she realized something else. She was going to have to kill him. Naruto would face this challenge. It was in his blood to overcome all challenges presented to him, and this was just another one for him to overcome in life. Naruto slowly walked down the long path from the kitchen to his room. It was a long walk. Gave him plenty of time to think. He knew he had said that he loved Hitomi, but was it true? Was it just a spur-of-the-moment thing? Her smile ran through his head quickly, and he grinned. Yes. Even though they had barely known each other, they had spent enough time together to know that much. But what about this new development? When I see your smile, tears run down my face I can't replace, and now that I'm strong I have figured out how this world turns cold, and it breaks through my soul, and I know I'll find deep inside me I can be the one. Naruto didn't want to die. He didn't want to lose Hitomi, or his friends. But then he grinned. The rewards, he'd instantly be a nine-tail, along with a nearly endless amount of chakra. The insane strength would be nice. I will never let you fall, I'll stand up with you forever, I'll be there for you through it all, even if saving you sends me to heaven. Sighing, Naruto put his head in his hands as he sat down on his bed. What could he do? There were 2 choices. Life, put death off, or death, possibly come back. He sprawled himself on his bed and groaned. Why couldn't he just flip a coin or something? Grinning, he got up and grabbed a coin. When he was just flipping it, it slid down his thumb a little, and shot off, burying itself into a wall. Naruto groaned and flopped back on his bed. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Seasons are changing and waves are crashing and stars are falling, all for us days grow longer and nights grow shorter, I can show you I'll be the one. Naruto's eyes widened as he realized something else. Why him? She could probably get every straight, and possibly gay man she wanted. Why choose him? The little demon boy, who was beaten and ridiculed just for holding her. For protecting them. Why should he live and go back to that like he planned? Naruto could tell from the look in Hitomi's eyes earlier that he mind wanted him to say no for personal reasons, but the hard-ass trainer part of her mind was wanting him to say yes. I will never let you fall, I'll stand up with you forever, I'll be there for you through it all, even if saving you sends me to heaven. But still, why would such a powerful being choose him? Naruto groaned. This was proving to be a royal pain in the ass. He sighed as he got up and started pacing. Plus, how could he look her in the eye and tell his half-demon side that wasn't dormant was waning? It wouldn't be coming back either. But he would die. 'Cause you're my true love, my whole heart, please don't throw that away, 'cause I'm here for you, please don't walk away, and please tell me you'll stay. But if he did live he wouldn't, but if he did, maybe, just maybe, he would be worthy. Maybe then he wouldn't feel so ashamed to live. Hated by humans, pitted by demons. There was no way he wanted to live a life like that. But there was no way he could live through that. If half-demons couldn't live through it, how could he? A lowly human, whose half-demon side was waning. He couldn't tell Hitomi that part. Naruto knew if he did, the disappointment in her eyes. Use me as you will, pull my strings just for a thrill, and I know I'll be okay, though my skies are turning gray. If Naruto did die, he couldn't let himself miss her. He had to separate himself from her as much as possible beforehand. Maybe then the hole that was forming in his heart wouldn't hurt so bad. He just hoped she missed it when she stabbed a fawn into it. Otherwise he'd have to be stabbed again. The more he thought about it, the more he felt his heart disintegrate. What if he had no heart left? What would happen? He just wanted to die. He probably would. And wherever it was he was going, he would be forced to watch her, but never be able to go near her. I will never let you fall, I'll stand up with you forever, I'll be there for you through it all, even if saving you sends me to heaven. Naruto got up and walked back down the hall, into the kitchen. Hitomi was still sitting there. The table where her head was hanging over was wet with tears. Hitomi, I'm sorry. he said, not able to look her in the eyes after she looked up at him. But I can't not do it. I feel I have to take this on. I want to prove what the villagers said about me was wrong. I want to do it. She let out a choked sob and threw her arms around his neck. Fine, I'll go get everything ready. She turned, and with one last glance over her shoulder, she looked at him, finally making eye contact. She saw a single tear roll down his face, as he stood there solemnly. She was done. All the symbols were drawn in blood, some covered in dirt, where a tear had smudged it, and laid in a pile to the side from where she'd scooped it up and thrown it over her shoulder. Naruto lay shirtless, the area around his heart covered in shapes and squiggles also, trying to steel himself for what was about to happen. Somewhere, deep inside, he knew that this was going to cause a pain like no other. Not even when Sasuke put the Chidori in his chest. But he tried to ignore that thought and continued to watch Hitomi. Hitomi, he said suddenly. She looked over at him. What are we? She sighed. I don't know. Would you be my girlfriend then? She looked at him, shocked at first, but then her shock melted into a soft, but sad smile. Yes. She whispered quietly. She continued checking her runes. If even one was wrong, he wouldn't be waking up. She stood up and looked at him. I'll be back. I have to go get a book from the library to make sure I got this right. She turned and walked out of the room. About 10 minutes later, she came back and flipped through the book, looking at each shape, symbol, squiggle, and the kanji. Then, being careful not to step in any blood, walked over to him and checked the ones on his chest. Then she put her finger over his heart and sent a small spark of chakra into the skin over his heart. He could now hear the blood rushing through his ears. If I don't speed up your heart, my blood won't have enough proteins to replace, and it won't work. I have to convince your body that you're exercising so it'll produce more protein. He nodded, as he felt himself start to pant and sweat. This is going to hurt, isn't it? He asked quietly. At first he didn't think she'd heard him, but he noticed the tears welling up in her eyes. I won't lie to you, Kit. The ones who did come back died from the pain, she said quietly. I lied because I didn't want to scare you about the pain part. That's what's killed around 25% of them. The other 75% just didn't wake up, she said sadly. He nodded. She started going through weird seals that looked like normal ones, except the occasional finger wasn't, or was there, that should or shouldn't be. She slammed her hand onto his heart, and all the blood traveled up onto the runes around his heart. Like when Kakashi sealed Sasuke's seal. It stung a little, but not much. Then she reached up, and winced as she pulled her left canine tooth out. She held it under her gum for a second, then removed it as a new tooth came in behind it. I love you, Kit. Then she slammed the tooth into his heart. He screamed. It hurt like nothing he'd felt before. Naruto felt the tooth explode in his heart, and that was it. He was standing beside his body, watching as he continued to scream, before all his screams quit. Hitomi let out a small whimper and tears flowed freely down her face. Suddenly, he started glowing red. Naruto felt a pull towards his body, before he was sucked headfirst into it. The pain was unexplainable. He wished he'd never agreed to this. He opened his eyes and could only see long enough to see Hitomi jump away from him, then his eyes rolled into the back of his head. His bones were on fire. They were melting and rebuilding. He could feel millions of strings unravel from him, then felt them, along with more, re-ravel about him, his insides, and then connect in his head. His tailbone suddenly exploded in pain, as he felt his skin melt and reform. The pain. That was all he could concentrate on. The pain. His head felt like it was going to explode and knowledge filled his head. Thoughts and knowledge and theories that didn't make sense at first, suddenly did as the two-tailed Kyuubi's blood was unlocked to its full potential. Filled his mind at an unbelievable rate, his mind expanding to make room for it all, then contracting to fit inside his head, over and over again. In the distance he could hear his screaming. His heart was going to explode at this point. The seal on it had to be the only thing keeping it from doing so. His skin stretched and reformed as his muscles expanded. Then, all at once it stopped. He felt his body quivering, and his throat hurt from screaming so much. He'd stopped breathing for a second, before a very small breath entered his lungs. Just enough to keep him conscious. There were sharp pains shooting through his body. Don't relax yet, Kit. It's not over, she whispered. Naruto could hear the sobs she was failing to hold back. Then the pain was born anew as his eyes shot open, then blew from his sockets, his optic nerve going behind them like a streamer, and a small stream of blood behind it in their place grew new ones. His arms and legs were gone in a bloody explosion, and in their place grew new ones, clawed and stronger. His ears were blasted out of his head, eardrums and all, more blood streaming behind them, as a new pair spouted from the top of his head. The whiskers on his face started bleeding as they were singed from his skin. In their place grew 6 real whiskers. Next his nose turned into a bloody mass of nothingness, blood splattering his face, and a new one was grown in its place. They looked exactly the same, but the new one was stronger, able to track scents. His throat was on fire as the screams stopped. That single part of his neck swelled till his entire esophagus blew out of his neck. His clothes now had blood dripping from them into the pool that had now formed about him. In its place grew one that now was unaffected by fire. "It's over, Kit. It's finally over," she said, pulling his head into her lap. "And, just so you know, the strings are his chakra coils reforming. Also, the thing about his mind expanding and contracting was just what it felt like. Also, I was going to end it here, but I decided as a thanks for all the readers who've stuck with me throughout this entire time, that I'll combine chapters 10 and 11 into one chapter. So now, I will continue with chapter 11. My Sacrifice. Chapter 11. Naruto's eyes shot open and looked at her. They were still blue, but had a slitted cornea. "Hitomi, it hurts," he whispered quietly. The pains were still shooting through his body. Hitomi felt a few tears slip as she felt his body still quivering a little. She picked him up bridal style and carried him down the hallway. "Thanks, Hitomi." His voice was raspy. "Don't talk. You won't be able to a while anyway," she said quietly. He nodded slightly. They reached his room, and she laid him down on his bed, then threw his sheet and comforter over him. "I've got to go burn the blood and body parts before they start to rot. Then I'll be back." However, she said this to deaf ears as he had finally given way to unconsciousness. When Naruto came back around, he found that Hitomi was asleep next to him. He tried to move, but gasped in pain as he did. Okay, so movement was a big no-no. However, his gasp of pain woke her up. She turned over slowly, as not to shake him. "How you feeling, Kit?" she whispered. He tried to say like crap, but all she got was some mouth movement and a quiet wheeze. She cocked her head to one side. Naruto slowly bent his head back, indicating his throat. "Oh, water, right?" She slowly got up, taking care not to jar him, and walked out of the room. She came back with a glass of water and put it to his lips. He gratefully drank it. "Like crap," he finally said. His voice was still barely a whisper. She chuckled slightly at his response. "I'm just glad you lived. You've officially made history. One of your dreams has finally been realized. Aren't you glad?" He laughed a little. "You still hurt?" He nodded slightly. "Here." She put 2 pills in his mouth and gave him some water. He swallowed. "You're lucky I keep aspirin around in case I run out of chakra. Otherwise you'd have to go cold turkey." He slowly moved his arm and pulled the covers off of him. He sat up, all of his movements slow, with the occasional wince whenever he moved too fast. Eventually, he was standing and making his way down the hallway. "I don't remember being this tall," he said. She now had to look up a little to make eye contact with him. "Bet you don't remember having a tail either," she said, chuckling slightly. He sighed and kept going. "Where are you headed anyway?" "Bathroom," he said simply. It made sense. He'd been lying there unconscious for 2 days. But if he kept moving at this pace, he wasn't going to make it. "Let me help," she said, as she got his arm over her shoulder and helped him walk down the hallway. He gave her a grateful smile as they made it down the hallway faster. They came to the door, and he took his arm from over her shoulder. "I can take it from here." "Sure you don't need help?" Her response was a door slammed in her face. Laughing, she sat down, waiting for the scream. After a minute or two, it came. She broke out laughing. He must have looked in the mirror. A few seconds later the door opened and he came out wide-eyed. "I look so different. Nobody back home," he stopped. "Nobody back in Konoha recognized me." He was grinning now, obviously pleased with the changes. "I see you like your tail," she said, grinning, as it swished from side to side. "Yeah, it's awesome. It was almost worth all that pain. Plus, you were right. 1,000 pounds is nothing anymore." She stared at him blankly. "You mean you had those damn things activated this whole time? Well, God, no wonder you hurt. You were being crushed. No waits until after you've recovered." She made a ram seal, and his weight seals glowed red before fading. "But dash. No buts. You've been unconscious for 2 days. We're getting food and then we're going to the library for lessons on sealing until you've healed." He frowned. 2 days? That's it. I thought it had been a week or something. Then he grinned. That explains why I'm so hungry, though. Can we go get some food? She grinned too. I'm so glad to hear you say that. She swung his arm back over her shoulder, and they hobbled down to the kitchen. No wonder you were so heavy when I had to drag your sorry ass to your bedroom. I nearly dropped you 3 times. She grumbled at him, talking about his weights, as she helped him into a chair, her hardened exterior taking its place again. Now, to celebrate, we need a big-ass breakfast, she said, pulling out pots and pans. About 15 minutes later, she had ramen, rice balls, rice, and dango on the table. She stood up to get some tea and he took a bite of ramen. Tastes like crap, he said, joking. Actually, it tasted better than it did before. His taste buds must have gotten stronger after the transformation. He instantly felt like 2 pebbles embed themselves into his forehead, then fall to the floor as a powder. See if you get any more breakfast or pain pills from me, she screamed. He cackled evilly, before coughing. He'd been talking way too much. I was kidding, it's great. Better than ever. Naruto was forced to whispering again. She frowned. Meds must have worn off. That's the bad part about being a Kyuubi. Unless you get really strong painkillers, they wear off in no time. She put 2 more pills in front of him. These are strong enough to kill a moose, or if it lives, let it jump off a cliff and say that was fun after it lands. It should do the trick. He popped them in his mouth, and continued eating. She sat some tea down in front of him, and he took a quick drink, before continuing to eat. Just wondering, do you realize how long you'll live now? He looked up at her, and shook his head. Let me put it this way. You'll see a good number of millennia. He started choking on his food. She reached over and slapped his back, dislodging the food from his throat. That's a long time, she just grinned. Good thing is, your body aged during the transformation. So I'm equal to about 25 in human years. You're probably around 20. So good thing is, me and you are close enough in age that it won't be considered wrong, he grinned. That was good. Plus you're at legal drinking age too. So that's even better. They finished eating, and Naruto was finally feeling good enough to move around freely. Okay, now for sealing lessons. Ugh, talk about boring, she said, making a face. Naruto laughed. You have a reason to thank me then. She cocked her head to one side in confusion. The half-demon side of me already knows it all. It was all transferred to me. She leaped across the table and hugged his neck. Thank God. I hated learning those, and I'd skip stuff teaching it just so I wouldn't have to drag it out. So, you've got the day off to do whatever you want. Except train. We'll do that later, she said, knowing what was going through his mind. He wanted to take his new body for a test drive. On the better side for me, you've outgrown all your clothes. He looked down and realized his pants looked like manpris, and his long-sleeved shirt was up to his elbows. When he bent his arm, a loud ripping sound was heard from the back of his shirt. She grinned evilly. Guess who's going shopping? He groaned. Hitomi taught him how to go back to a normal human before she dragged him out of the cave. At first, the sunlight hurt his eyes, but he quickly got used to it. Kit, there's a second reason why we've left here. We're going back to Konoha. You're going to fake your death with a bushin, she said bluntly. But first, we're getting you out of those clothes. Hitomi turned into a human form and they ran to a small village nearby. The village wasn't one that would have shinobi in it, but did have a small shopping area, where they found Naruto some clothes. The pants were black, and his shirt was a fishnet, and a dark blue shirt over it. Turning around, they threw their bags in their cave, knowing they had to get to the forest in front of Konoha before sunset. After a few hours, they made it. Half the time it took for them the first time. Hitomi stopped him about a mile from the village, and taught Naruto to do what she called Shiketsu Kage Bushin no Jutsu. Bloody Shadow Clone Jutsu. They ran another half-mile and she grinned. We're going to spar. When I call time, you're going to do that. Naruto nodded and they started fighting. The effects of some of their major jutsus brought the attention of the ANBU to the fight. When Hitomi sensed the ANBU coming, she looked at him. Do it. He grinned. Naruto made the clone and it exploded in a mass of blood. Amazing thing was, it was real blood that had been multiplied from a drop of blood from Naruto. The ANBU members landed and looked at the mass of blood before getting a sample and going back to the village. Naruto and Hitomi ran, and after they knew they were out of hearing distance, they both broke out laughing. Finally making it back to the cave, Hitomi splashed some of her blood across the top, and they both walked in. Naruto was officially free. He was considered dead by everyone except for 2 people on this planet. The ANBU leader was in shock, looking at the results from the blood tests. He couldn't believe it. There was no way Naruto was dead. He got up and knocked on the door, before opening it. To what do I owe this visit, Kakashi? Tsunade said, looking up at him. He lowered his mask, tears flowing down his face, and dropped the open folder on her desk. My squad heard the sound of a fight, so we went to investigate. We found blood. It looked like someone had exploded. Those are the results of the blood test. She looked down and gasped. No. There was no way. The blood holds an exact match to Naruto Uzumaki. The amount of blood at the finding place suggests the body of Mr. Uzumaki disintegrated when it exploded, leaving nothing but his blood, meaning that he was blown from the inside out. Condition: deceased. Tears started rolling down Tsunade's eyes. Go, she stopped trying to regain her composure. Go update the bingo books. Don't tell the villagers, she said. He put his mask back on. Kakashi, he stopped in mid-step for the door. Put him on the Kia stone. He nodded and walked out. Okay, Kit. Welcome to hell. Activate your weights and double them, she said. He did, and felt the strain. However, she exploded in a mass of smoke. He sighed, and shook his head before remaking the bushin, and this time her face was slightly crimson. He could move even with the doubled weights, just very, very slowly. Then she charged at him. He screamed and ducked out of the way. Lucky he did. The wall behind him exploded in a mass of dust. Looking up, he realized that she had destroyed the wall. Naruto watched as it grew back in place. Okay, let's get this straight. The idea is not to move, she screamed, kicking him again. This time he swung his arm up in a side block. She grinned. Much better. She turned and swung her foot at the other side of his head. He caught her ankle. She used his grip to try to kick his other side. He caught her ankle again. She tried to punch his face, but instead she hit a wall of chakra. Even after blasts of fire, she couldn't break loose. It's the ultimate defense, he said, grinning. For real this time, not like Niji's Kaiten. I noticed, she said, packing chakra in her punch and slamming her fist into it over and over again. She didn't expect it to send out spikes, which pinned her to the wall on the other side of the room. You know that I just wear clothes to keep you from freaking out, right? He nodded. Then pinning me up by my own clothing wasn't a good idea. His eyes widened and the spikes disappeared. Good choice. He stuck his tongue out, but pulled it back in before she could grab it. He swung his leg through her ankles, and she fell unceremoniously to the ground. Looking up at him, she glared. He broke out laughing. Good going, Grace. He snickered at his nickname for her before continuing. I'm sorry, but I can only give you a 3 for that landing. She kicked his foot. That wasn't nice. I'm not a nice person. Actually, I'm not even a person. Ha! She stuck her tongue out, and had to pull it back in before he grabbed it. She stood back up, and kicked his chest. Again it was caught short by a wall of chakra. Ugh! Stop doing that! She started attacking him from all angles, using every jutsu in her arsenal, and every form of taijutsu she knew. None of them could break through the chakra. This is 100 times stronger than steel. You aren't breaking through. He grinned, but it dropped when she kicked him up in the air, using his shield to get a better hit. Strands of chakra shot out around him, and they started spinning. He freaked out. This was the primary lotus. He expanded his chakra shield, and covered them both. When they hit the ground, all that happened was a deep hole was made, and a deep bass, like someone hitting a gong, was made. He dropped his shield from around her, and she looked at him in amazement. How'd it uphold against the primary lotus? That's impossible to defend against, she said, her eyes wide. My chakra spins in the opposite direction, slowing down the lotus. By the time I hit the ground, it slowed down enough to protect me, he said, grinning. She shook her head and went to attack him again. It did no good. They continued for hours, their bottomless chakra supply egging them on. Blow for blow was exchanged, before finally Naruto couldn't hold up his shield anymore. Good. No shield. Now I'm gonna wipe the floor with you. He grinned and released his human form for his half-demon form. Naruto could feel the power coursing through him. Want a bet? And again they went at it. Blow for blow, kick for kick. After another hour or so, they were both battered and bruised. You used to those weights yet? He nodded. Good, add another 500 pounds. Naruto groaned, but did as she said. He groaned again as he felt the added weight take effect on his battered body. That hurt? He nodded again. Good. With that, she charged him. He tried to lift his arm to block the attack, but he couldn't move fast enough and got it full in the face. She made a kick to his ribs, but he still couldn't get his arm up fast enough to block the shot. He heard some ribs crack and heal. So it continued for a while. Naruto swore every bone in his body was going to need to be broken and said again. Finally, it stopped. He felt his weights being deactivated and slowly picked his head up off the ground. He was sprawled out on his back at the moment. She had a look of pity on her face and helped him up. I get over one pain and get another, he muttered to her. She laughed as he hobbled down the hallway. She walked him all the way to his bedroom before shoving him into the library. Now on to a lesson. You want to be Hokage, right? He nodded. Good. Now you're going to study politics. Then we'll eat dinner and you can go to bed. He groaned. This is your new training schedule. Starting tomorrow morning, we'll start Kitsune Jutsu training. The next morning, he was awoken at 5 a.m., according to his watch, and was thrown into the kitchen to eat. He had 20 minutes to find, make, and eat food before starting training. Okay, now for Jutsu training. First, you need to learn the demon seals. She started showing him. In the bird, his middle fingers were sticking up instead of being folded. Boar, his palms were flat against each other facing down. Dog, his bottom hand was out flat. Dragon, his fingers were laced, sticking out above the backs of his hands. Hare, 2 fingers were sticking out on bottom. Monkey, both palms were flat against each other, fingers pointing in opposite directions. Horse, the pinkies were pointing down. Ox, his middle finger was standing up. Ram, 3 fingers instead of 2. Rat, 3 fingers instead of 1. Serpent, thumb and pinky stuck out. Tiger, pinky was sticking up. Can you remember all of that? He nodded. Good, because I'm not repeating it. Now for a weak Kitsune Fire Jutsu. She made the demon Tora seal. Kitsune Faia. Fox Fire, and she blew out a dark blue flame. Your turn. He grinned, and made the demon Tora seal also. Kitsune Faia. For the second time that week, this boy amazed her. It was at least twice as big as what she blew out. Apparently, he wasn't putting much effort into it either. She threw a fist-sized stone into the fire. He stopped and started blankly at the rock. Actually, what was now a puddle of lava. Now for a history lesson. When the Kyuubis were first on the earth, they learned of their power over fire. However, they found that their fire had a weakness. Throw water on it, it goes out. Cover it with sand or dirt, it goes out. So they learned to take a mastery over those elements. Like so. She made another seal. Demon Boar. Kitsune Kozue Fox Flood, she said. A blast of water shot out of her mouth, slamming into the small puddle of lava. It steamed, and eventually turned back into stone. She found a larger stone and melted it. Now for ice. She made the Demon Boar and Demon Dragon seal. Taketsu Kitsune Kozue. Frozen Kitsune Flood. The lava turned into a block of ice. The difference between a normal version of these and the Kitsune version is that the Kitsune version has taken the power to extreme levels. Even better, the Sharingan can't copy any demon jutsus. He grinned. That would come in handy. He had some trouble with getting the ice to form, but an hour later he had it down. She sighed and grinned. Last one then. She quickly did a demon ox and boar. Kitsune Dosakiria. Kitsune Avalanche, mud shot from her mouth, and slammed into a wall with a sick slopping sound. Your turn. He had the same effect on his first shot. You've amazed me 2 days in a row. You learned those 4 faster than I did. Hitomi turned and walked out of room, indicating for him to follow. He did, and they walked towards the entrance. She kept going until they got a few feet away from the stairs leading above ground. She bit her thumb and drew the kanji for Kyuubi on the wall. The outline of a door glowed, before the wall disappeared. In its place was a row of swords. She reached in and grabbed a simple silver one, and strapped it to her belt loop. Hitomi's wearing jeans today. Then she pulled a string attached to the side, and the swords disappeared into the wall. Hitomi then stuck her 9 tails into 9 holes and then pulled them out after a click was heard. Behind that was a black sword. She reached out and grabbed it, before handing it to him. This is yours now. Its name is the Sakurikako. Death's shadowy past. He held it in his hands. He could feel the power it contained. There was a dragon's mouth opening at the end of the hilt, and the blade was jet black. There was a small purple/pink stone embedded under the dragon's mouth. The sheath was also black. He tied it to his pants using the loop that was hanging out of the side. So that's why she told me to get these pants. He realized her plan as he tied it on. She then sealed the door shut, and led him back to the training room. From this point forward, we've got a new rule. You are not to speak in any way when we're training, or allowed to make any noise. You're so damn loud, I can hear you coming a mile off. I'm going to add 25 pounds for each noise you made. Naruto made to protest. You're officially in training at the moment. All protests are to be held onto and said after I'm done with you. He sighed, and felt his weights get a little heavier. Any sound whatsoever. She grinned darkly. Naruto had to resist the urge to sigh again, and nodded. Also, I'm adding Kenjutsu training onto your list. By the way, I need you to cut yourself with that sword. His face was one of confusion, but he couldn't ask why, so he had to do it anyway. The sword glowed red before dimming back down. She reached over and grabbed the hilt. The hilt turned into a blade and cut her hand. She dropped it as 4 daggers shot out horizontally. Now nobody can steal it, or use it. Aside from you, that is. His mouth formed an O shape. She pulled out her own sword, and stared, teaching him to fight. After that, they moved on to taijutsu and genjutsu training. In taijutsu he learned to use his tails and claws in battle, as well as the Kyuubi style. In genjutsu, he learned every form of genjutsu, human and demon kinds, as to how to invoke them with his tails. He learned all of the kenjutsu from every village's forbidden scroll. His weights were increased to the weight of about 10 tons, and he learned everything he needed to know about politics. Hitomi taught Naruto to cook, and in return, Naruto paid rent 3 times monthly. His chakra supply eventually got large enough to keep Hitomi out of her cell for weeks at a time. Also, he mastered Disakura Kako, all medical fields, and read the entire Kyuubi family library, and learned his dad's most famous technique. The Shunshin no Jutsu. Body flicker. And it only took 4 years. 6 months later, from where the last chapter cut off. Hitomi looked over at her partner from the corner of her eye. He'd certainly come a long way. In only 4 years, he'd gained all 9 tails, and was well on his way to his final 10th one. Hitomi was about a fourth of the way there. This child was truly a prodigy if she'd ever seen one. The only drawback was, he'd long since lost use of his voice because of her training and the lack of use, plus he'd stopped using it altogether after a while. They'd found this out about a month back, and they had to go see Tsunade to get them fixed. Her gaze turned to a glare. They had spent the last 6 months as mercenaries, letting Naruto get a feel of his skills in a real battle and on the battlefield. They'd just finished and gotten paid for one near the Leaf Village, and since they were close by, they just figured they might as well go on and make the trip. In just 6 months, he'd picked up the name Disu Dekchi, Death's Apprentice, because of his black sword, and the fact that he usually killed people in one swing of the sword. People said he was learning to become the next god of death. You know, we wouldn't have to be making this trip if you weren't so scared of doing it yourself, she said, frowning at him. A small dragon, that looked like a salamander with wings, made of fire, started making writing in front of her. Using a flame from its tail, the letters it spelled out lingered. I'll screw it up. She sighed and shook her head. Go back to my head. I've got to get past the guards. She nodded and disappeared. He retracted his tails, claws, and his ears turned into human ones that were on the side of his head, making him look like a normal human. Halt! What business do you have in Konoha? Naruto shook his head and pointed to his throat, indicating he couldn't talk. The Anbu nodded his head. Fine. A Jounin will escort you to the Hokage's office. He knocked twice on the large steel doors and yelled, Open up. The doors opened and a Jounin was standing on the other side of them. Specifically Hinata. His eyes widened, and Naruto was glad that he was wearing a bamboo hat. Otherwise she might have recognized him. Follow me, she said, the shyness and stutter long since gone from her voice. He followed her as they walked through the streets. She took him all the way to the door of the building. Nothing had really changed since he'd left. The people looked older, but that was it. When they finally reached the Hokage Tower, Naruto mouthed a thank you to her, slightly raising his hat and letting her see his whisker marks. But he pulled it back down, and would have chuckled at her face if he could have. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. He walked in and stopped at a desk. Shizen was sitting there. She looked up at him. Oh, you must be the visitor. Hold on, I'll escort you up to Hokage-sama's office. She got up and walked around the desk, then motioned for him to follow. He did, and they went up a few flights of stairs, before coming to a door. Shizen knocked on the door, and motioned for him to go on through. Tsunade looked up. Who are you? She asked bluntly. He stared blankly at her. He's mute, Shizen said before closing the door. Naruto snapped and the lock clicked, before the room glowed green. Tsunade's eyes widened. There was only one person she knew who made the room do that. But he was dead. She sighed and shook her head, then looked up at him. He pretended to be writing something on air. She got the hint and handed him a pen and paper. I'm the Disodekchi. Her eyes widened at this point. Apparently some boy had shown up about 6 months ago, and was able to kill anyone. Anybody he was pitted against. All he did was make a swipe and anything in his way was cut into. In my training, I was forced to go without using my voice. At all. After 4 years, my sensei finally allowed me to talk again. However, we found out I can no longer talk, and I'm not exactly brave enough to try doing it to myself, because I'd end up screwing up somehow. She chuckled slightly, for the first time since she found out about Naruto's death. So that was why he was a mute. Even funnier, this teenager had fought people thought to be invincible and had won effortlessly, but was afraid to do a simple medical procedure to himself. Fine, I'll help you. But you're gonna have to fork over for it. He nodded. I need you to take off your hat. He froze for a second, and made the demon ram's seal. She jumped into a defense position, but he just reached up and pulled his hat off. She was met with blonde hair and blue eyes. Whoa, he's just missing whiskers, or he'd look just like Naruto. But his eyes weren't slitted. Naruto saw the recognition in her eyes and started panicking. However, she took a look at his neck, and poked and prodded, before sighing. Shirt's gotta go too. I still can't get a good look at your neck. At this he was all out panicking. If you're caught, it's on your own head. You could have just done this yourself, but nuh. Gonna mess up, you said. Well, look at where it's gotten you now, genius. Shut up. Naruto reached down and pulled the shirt over his head, hoping she didn't notice the seal on his stomach. Naruto knew she would get curious if he hit it with a genjutsu like he did his whiskers, so he had no choice. She looked at his neck, and make a few seals, before touching her green chakra to his neck. He felt nothing, however. When Tsunade pulled her hand back, she was grinning. There you go, buddy. Now cough up. Ah. Arigato, Bachan. It was at that moment he realized his mistake. Her eyes widened as she looked at him, then looked at his stomach. The seal was there. And dash was all she got out before Naruto had crossed the room and put his hand over her mouth. This room isn't soundproofed, just sealed, he whispered. Naruto made a few demon seals, and the room glowed purple, before it faded. She was staring at him wide-eyed. She hadn't even seen him move. Naruto, is that really you? He nodded. She walked over and threw her arms around him, sobbing. I thought you died. There was your blood splattered all across these trees. Those idiots at the hospital said it was your blood. They probably just made it up. Naruto sighed. That was my blood. Tsunade backed away from him, and looked at him with a confused face. Sensei taught me a way to make it appear as though my body did explode. I needed to be removed from the bingo books so I could move freely around the world. So I faked my death. Who's your sensei? Tsunade asked. Naruto sighed. Don't scream. Why would I? She stared in shock. There stood the nine-tailed Kyuubi, her head resting on his shoulder. Tsunade knew nothing else to do. She screamed. Naruto and Hitomi both grasped their ears and grunted in pain. Of course, it looked as though Naruto were grasping the top of his head. It's Kyuubi, Tsunade said, backing up into a wall. Then she remembered that she'd already screamed at him over that. She couldn't recall the yokai's name, though. Hitomi. Hitomi said. Tsunade looked on in confusion. Naruto released his genjutsu, revealing his 9 tails, whiskers, claws, and ears. As well as the fact that he was 6 feet 3 inches. Naruto had been standing even with Tsunade before. She looked up to see Naruto's face towering over her. I see a growth spurt kicked in. He laughed slightly. Yeah. So, have you come back to Konoha? Naruto frowned. No, Tsunade's face fell. I have to finish off Orochimaru and Akatsuki. Sasuke's coming back to Konoha with me. Her face fell even more. Finish off? Akatsuki heard about some 24-year-old kid killing like it was nothing and came to recruit. They lost 2 members that day, he said, grinning. I've long passed Akatsuki. I'm just waiting for them to send their people. When they realize I've got Hitomi with me on a half-ass seal in an almost physical manifestation, they're going to come after me, and I'll kill the rest of them. Tsunade shook her head. This kid was something else. As for payment, I can make that genjutsu that you're using stop being a genjutsu, and actually make you 25. Her eyes widened. Was that possible? How he just grinned. It's a secret. Naruto sped through some seals. A few Tsunade recognized, the rest she didn't. Finally, he pulled a scroll out of his pocket and started writing faster than she could keep up with. After a few seconds, he grabbed the sides of Tsunade's head. He held them for a second before pulling his hands away, and a sickly gray substance came with his hands. Naruto slammed his hands into the scroll and started drawing again. Finally, he rolled up the scroll and started writing in blood across her face, went through a few more seals, and then touched his index fingers to her temples. Tsunade fell unconscious. When she came to, she saw Naruto and Kyuubi sitting in some chairs in front of her desk. Finally come around? About time. She looked around, and realized she felt like she had more energy than she'd ever had before. Hopping up, she looked at Naruto. Do you have a mirror? She squeaked slightly from surprise as she realized her voice was a little bit higher pitched than before. Naruto pulled one out of his back pocket. She looked in it and stared in amazement. She was 25, and looked exactly as she did back then. How'd you do it? Tsunade asked in amazement. I took the age and sealed it into a scroll. It makes the scroll age at an incredible pace, until it finally disintegrates into nothingness, he said, grinning. Also, do you know where Jiraiya is? I'm gonna do the same for him. She nodded. Bathhouse. Naruto shook his head. He should have guessed. Can you send for him? I can't exactly leave the room, he said, an amused smile playing his face. She nodded and sent an ANBU to get him over the intercom. Jiraiya showed up, and was thrown in so the room could be resealed, which it was immediately. He repeated the process before the old man could protest. Tsunade watched in amazement, and his wrinkles faded, and his hair began to recede, his hairline growing out. That's amazing. He looks exactly like he did when we were just promoted to Sannin, she gasped. Naruto nodded. When he came to, Jiraiya realized what had happened. Then he looked to Tsunade. Holy crap, you're not old. Neither am I. Where'd you learn how to do that? He asked, jumping up. Tsunade just pointed behind him. He turned and froze. Naruto and Kyuubi. Hitomi. Hitomi corrected him. However, Jiraiya heard her, but was looking up at Naruto. Good lord, boy, I don't believe it. You look just like your father. Naruto grinned. Thanks. By the way, this is my girlfriend, Hitomi. Also known as the Kyuubi. Their jaws hit the floor. No way, Jiraiya said. Wait, how'd she get out anyway? Tsunade asked. Orochimaru. Was all Naruto said. They both sighed. On the plus side, he hasn't taken over Sasuke's body. Sasuke somehow convinced him that he could get stronger before letting him take over his body. So we've got another 3 years before it's too late. Naruto sighed. I'll get him back. I've got to go. He had Hitomi disappear in a plume of smoke. Before he unsealed the room, he looked at the two. Bye. And with that, he unsealed the room, and walked out the door. I think I can find my way back to the gates. Arigato Hokage-sama. He looked down both hallways, and mouthed Bachan, then turned and went down towards the stairs. Looking over the railing, he realized there was nobody on the stairs. Perfect. He hopped over the railing and fell to the bottom. He stood up straight, and walked out the door, hoping nobody would find the crater he left. He finally made it to his destination. Ichiraku Ramen. He walked in and plopped down in a chair. 3 bowls of miso ramen, he cried. Naruto created a bushin in the alley beside the stand, so she would seem to have walked in instead of just appearing from thin air next to him, and Hitomi walked in and plopped down next to him. What's a moron like you doing in a place like this? She asked, trying not to laugh. Shut up. We're gonna get caught, and you're gonna get stuck working for them again, if you live. Shut up. If dash, he slapped his hand over her mouth, and jerked his head over his shoulder. Hinata, Ino, and Tenten were sitting behind them, staring at him. Tsuchi sat 3 bowls in front of him, and Naruto coughed up for them. Then he slid 1 bowl over to Hitomi, and they started eating. Of course, Naruto wanted to order 50 bowls, but that'd be too obvious. Just as he was about to stand up, Hinata, Ino, and Tenten walked over and stood in front of him. Hey, Hinata said. Hello, ladies. And goodbye, ladies, he said, standing up. Hinata pushed him back in his chair. I don't think so. What's up with your whiskers? Naruto rubbed his chin. Well, I lost my razor downstream when I was shaving the other day, and I haven't been able to dash. Your face is completely hairless aside from 6 hairs. Really? Wow, them's some good eyes you got there to be able to see I only had 6. I thought I'd have a few thousand. He chuckled at his own joke. Hinata, over the years, had become a force to be reckoned with, as well as getting the title of having the fastest reflexes anyone's seen since some dead jounin. Add that with the fact that she's the mistress of the Hyugas, and you've got a pretty powerful person. So, she shot her hand out to take over his hat, but her hand never made it. Her wrist was caught just out of reach of his head. Her finger couldn't touch it by less than 1/4 of an inch. You're no wonderer, she said, pulling her hand back. He frowned. I don't believe I ever said I was. What's your name? And why won't you take off your hat? I like my hat. Take your hat off, and the girl doesn't die, Ino said, grinning evilly. He sighed. Yes, very well. He pulled his hat off, knowing he was screwed. He hadn't bothered hiding his ears because he was wearing his hat. They gasped, and he activated his bloodline. Hiraishin no Jutsu. Grabbing all 4 girls, he ran to the ally, and sat them down in their respective places. He didn't want to become a nuke nin again, so he stayed. After deactivating the Hiraishin, they looked around, amazed. Tenten looked at him in shock. That was the Hiraishin no Jutsu. Only the 4th knew how to do that. Actually, it was his bloodline, Naruto said. He hated it when people got things about his dad all mixed up. Then you're the Yandame's son? All of their eyes widened in shock. Hitomi and Naruto because they knew they were screwed, and the other 3 because they realized who he was. Naruto? Not anymore. I'm known now as the Disodekchi. Ino broke out laughing. Yeah, right, dope. The Disodekchi is said to be 24 years old, and is able to kill anyone, effortlessly. He's also supposed to have like 9 tails. Plus, he's got a black sword. You've just got a cheap piece of plastic. And I see no tails. Ino was snickering the whole time. So, Tenten's gone to alert the ANBU, right? Naruto said suddenly. They stared at him blankly. He put his foot through Tenten's stomach, and she disappeared in a plume of smoke. Very well, I'll take my leave now, he said, reaching for his hat. Hinata ran through some seals, and set fire to the hat. Now that wasn't nice. Hitomi was just grinning. Tenten got a mob together. She nodded towards the entrance to the ally, where there were pitchforks, torches, and one too many ANBU, Jounin, Chunin, and even Genin. Naruto grinned. Oh, fun. Looks like I get to extract my revenge after all. Hinata and Ino both laughed. Oh, that's right. You're the Disodekchi, aren't you? Yes, he said, drawing his sword. Gripping it, Naruto's 9 tails appeared, and the sword seemed to burn with pitch-black fire. They stared in awe. You weren't lying, you really are the Disodekchi, Hinata said in shock. Ino's mouth was just hanging open. I'll take down Orochimaru, then I'll bring back Sasuke. You and Sakura can fight over him from there, he said before holding out his sword. Move. Hinata activated her Byakugan. Naruto looked over at Hitomi. This is stupid, you're gonna get caught. This is just like the riot we took down last month. It'll be easy. Plus, this time we've got every rank above Genin. Last time it was just 3 little Genin from grass. They were weak, even for Genin. Naruto paused. I want to do this one alone, Hitomi, he said, turning serious. Hitomi sighed and nodded before disappearing. Who was that? Hinata said. My girlfriend. Also known as the Kyuubi, but her name's Hitomi. If you guys live, see to having that fixed? Hinata growled and did her most powerful attack. Hack Sanbyaku Rokujuchi Shiki. Divination Field, Divine 361 strikes. Naruto took every blow, eventually dropping his sword at around 160. His body fell limp around 250, leaving him hanging in the air by nothing but Hinata's blows. 360, he could be considered dead. 361, he really was dead, as his body lay lifeless on the ground. Or so she thought. Dear Lord, that hurt. What happened to the crush you had on me? He muttered, rubbing his stomach. Hinata's eyes widened in shock. It wasn't possible. Nobody could survive that. How come you're still living? Naruto grinned. That doesn't work on me. All of my tenketsu have already been closed, and chakra is being forced through them anyway. If I release them completely. He just snickered a little. Let's just say bad things will happen. Hinata had to know now. Like what? Did you hear about the destruction of the Windmill Village over in Wind Country? She nodded. I met the Sound 4 there. They almost got me, but I released my tenketsu and lost control of my chakra. The resulting explosion destroyed no annihilated the village and everyone in it. He said the last part sadly. I didn't mean to kill all those people. Naruto whispered, almost hysterically, but Hinata still caught it. However, the crowd saw Naruto stand back up, and was roaring for his head to be removed from his body. I don't want to kill you, Hinata. With that, Naruto made the demon serpent seal, and Hinata felt her arms and legs snap together, and she fell over on her back, Ino falling beside her. You'll be released when I'm about a mile from here. So will everyone who I used to know that's in or around this area. He felt Konohamaru standing behind him, poised to kill with a kunai. Konohamaru, I don't want to kill you. Put it down, Naruto said, turning around. He looked up and saw who it was. Ni-chan, he said, hugging Naruto. Naruto pushed him away. Sorry, kid. I've got to keep my appearance. Stay here, and no matter what happens, don't leave until Hinata and Ino can move. Konohamaru nodded. Congratulations on getting Chunin, by the way. Before he took to the building to his right, and hopping across to the building on the other side of the street, then landed in front of them. They turned, ready to kill. This wasn't a riot. This was a bloodbath waiting to happen. This crowd had totally lost control in their rage, and wouldn't quit until they got their blood. Naruto held out his hand, and his sword appeared in a flash of black flames. Remember the child you abused, just for having a demon within him. He cried out, making sure everyone heard. Remember my name. I am the Disodeki. He cried, charging forward, slashing the genin who tried to take him out. Next, some villagers threw pitchforks at him. He created the demon Tora seal, and blew, a dark blue flame melting the metal of the pitchforks on contact. The wood burned to a crisp before it hit the ground. He realized then that a few Chunin had flanked him. Naruto started swinging his sword, each swing killing. Not a single one missed. The ANBU surrounded him, and one dropped a few clay jars of water. Then all of them yelled, Suiro no Jutsu. Water prison. The water came up in a giant ball around him, then shrunk as they pushed their hands, which were holding up the prison, together. Naruto just laughed. That's it. How sad. The mighty ANBU of Konoha are so weak. Someone laughed from outside, and pulled off their mask. It was Niji. I can see all of your tenketsu are sealed. Hinata must have gotten to you. Naruto laughed louder. Good job. She hit me with Hack Sanbyaku Rokujuchi Shiki, he said, grinning. Niji's mouth dropped. Luckily, Hyuga techniques don't work on me, and I just absorbed her chakra that she sent into me. Niji frowned. In any case, you can't escape from here, Disodeki. Naruto laughed again. You forget. I'm the son of the Yondaime. His Hiraishin no Jutsu was actually a bloodline. He grinned. But the Rasengan, however, isn't. Naruto tails reappeared. He'd hidden them so that no one would try grabbing or attacking them, and flared out around him, making a 180-degree angle. Then, on each tip, a Rasengan was formed. Then, 2 more were created on his elbows, knees, the top of his feet, and in his hands. I've got a total of 17 Rasengans. Do you honestly think you can hold up against that? A few Jounin ran up and stuck their hand to the sphere, adding more chakra. Then, more ANBU appeared, and also aided. Niji laughed. However, there are at least 30 of us. He glanced around. 39 to be precise. Doesn't matter. 39, 390. Same difference. I can still defeat you all. The Rasengans died down. But I'll make you a deal. To give you a fighting chance, I'll use nothing but my sword. He unsheathed his sword, dropping into a stance. He jumped up, and cut a hole in the top of the prison, before jumping out of it. The water just collapsed in on itself. The ANBU immediately started going through seals. Kanashibari no Jutsu. Body freeze, they all cried. Naruto felt his body seize up, before collapsing. He groaned. Dear God, don't you people ever give up. I'm actually trying to get rid of one of your threats, yet here you are acting like I'm the enemy. Niji walked up to him, eyes narrowed in suspicion. What do you mean? It doesn't matter, he said, giving off a wave of chakra. He stood up effortlessly. Because I've gotta go. Time to wrap this up. Suddenly, the ANBU's masks were gone. Naruto didn't seem to move at all, but he had a stack of masks in his hands. Nobody I know. Okay, good. Niji. I don't want to have to kill you, so he made the demon serpent sign, and Niji fell to the ground, straight as a board. I'll tell you what I told Hinata. You'll be able to move when I'm a mile away. Naruto then got his sword ready and shot in a circle in front of all the ANBU. They all fell to the ground, clutching their stomachs. Anyway, I was supposed to freeze anyone in the whole village who knew me. Guess I still haven't mastered that. The crowd realized that they hadn't stopped him, and started to bomb rush Naruto. Naruto just sighed, and positioned his sword next to his left shoulder. Goodbye, a good majority of Konoha. He scanned the crowd first, making sure he knew no one in it, before swinging his sword horizontally. Disokure Kako! He cried. A giant black crescent moon made its way towards the crowd. They seemed to think it was a genjutsu. That nothing as powerful as that could be created, because they kept running at it. Idiots. Naruto muttered. The black moon cut the entire mob in half. Blood went everywhere as the torso started hitting the ground. Blood flowed freely down the streets, nearly flooding them. Tucci and Ayam both ran out. Ayam screamed, and Tucci pushed her back inside the stand. He looked back at Naruto with a sad look on his face. Why? Naruto walked over to him. They tried to kill me countless times as a child. Once or twice, they even succeeded, and the third had to heal me himself because the hospital wouldn't take a demon. My healing powers, which I found out later was the Kyuubi, would always bring me back to life, and keep me that way long enough for the third to get to me. I was set fire to, beaten, nearly frozen in a block of ice. I've lost all the fingers on my hand, where someone took a sledgehammer to them, then an axe. That's only the tip of the iceberg. I honestly don't feel like going into detail, because I've got to go. More A and BU are on their way, and I don't want to kill anymore. He started to turn. Wait, Naruto, just out of curiosity, how strong are you? You've heard of Akatsuki? The man nodded. I killed 2 of their stronger men in 3 minutes flat. Tucci's eyes widened. He didn't know much about being a ninja, but he did know that these men were of the elite. There was apparently nobody that could stand up to any of them well before Naruto, that is. Naruto picked up Tucci's hand and dropped a sack of ryu in it. Here. For the customers you just lost. It's enough to keep you by until I get back. Tucci nodded and walked back inside. I never saw you, right? Naruto laughed slightly. Right. He turned and walked for the gates. The other mob that was trying to sneak up behind him had dispersed at the sight of their comrades falling to pieces on them. He snickered at his own joke. Sick, yes, but still funny. He frowned as an ANBU landed in front of him. I don't want to kill anymore. Please move, Naruto said, his nose starting to burn from the smell of blood. The man shook his head and removed his dog mask. Kakashi-sensei? The man had tears rolling down his face. It really is you, Naruto. I had to apologize. I thought that Sasuke was most likely to go AWOL on us, so I trained him, trying to convince him he was strong enough. That failed, and we fell apart. I thought that maybe if you had stayed, between Jiraiya and me, you could become Hokage. But I see now that leaving was the best thing that ever happened to you. Naruto sighed. How old are you now, Kakashi? He looked up, confused. 34. Why? Naruto sighed and ran through some seals. He had to make this quick. Naruto quickly sealed 14 years off into a scroll. Kakashi came to after a few moments. What did you do? Naruto grinned. Technically, I'm older than you now. Welcome back to being 20. Huh. What a great response for someone of his strength and intellect. I sealed 14 years off you. You now have the body you did when you were 20. Kakashi's eyes widened. I'll say we're even, because I'm going to need those 14 years to use on Orochimaru. Kakashi figured out his plan. Get out of here, he said, chuckling. Don't come back until you've killed some major people with big names. Naruto realized he was joking. He walked up and hugged him. This man was like his brother in a way. I'll be back. With that, Naruto disappeared. Kakashi saw Neji jump up off the ground, his sword drawn. You're too late, Neji. Naruto just left. Neji's eyes widened. That's not possible. Naruto traveled a mile that fast? Kakashi smiled and nodded. He truly is the Yandame's son. The said boy was taking miles in a leap using his Kekkei Genkai. He had to move fast. That blast he used to destroy the crow had emptied his chakra supplies a lot faster than he thought it would. After he still had 20 miles left, Naruto cried out in frustration and flashed straight into his bedroom. That was the last of it. He fell over on his side and slept. When he woke up, Naruto saw that he was in the same place he was at when he went to sleep. Stretching and yawning, he stood up and made a Kagebushin, and let Hitomi take over the body. She slapped him. You moron! She screamed. You nearly got caught. They had you. If you hadn't let half your tenketsu go, you would still be in Konoha being interrogated. I had to feed you some of my chakra to keep you from dying. He sighed and flopped on his back on the bed. I killed them all. It's just like the Windmill Village all over again. Hitomi sighed and shook her head. No, it's not. You were in control this time. No, I wasn't. I had to let off that blast. My chakra nearly exploded again, and I had to get rid of it to keep from destroying the village. I had no control over that chakra at all. Hitomi sighed. You have to remember, you're still not done with your training yet. You can't release all of your tenketsu, but you will. And when you do, we'll go take out Akatsuki. She said, grinning. He just sighed. Come on, let's go to the training room. That always seems to calm you down. He nodded and they stood up and headed down the hall. They got there and she pointed at his sword. Get rid of your sword. You've already mastered it anyway, so there's no kenjutsu training. He nodded and slid it on the ground to the entrance. Now I want you to start releasing tenketsu until you're just under losing control. Then, you're going to leave them like that for the next week. He nodded and started releasing them. At just under a fourth of them, he looked up at her expectantly. She nodded and turned, leaving the room. That's it for today. You can train on your own if you want to get a feel for the chakra. I'm sorta hungry. I mean, I've been cooped up in your head for a month. She sighed. He shook his head. That was the only downside to having so much chakra. It took so long to restore it once you used all of it. Naruto sighed and followed her. He'd come back and train after breakfast, of course. In that week, he picked up a few mercenary jobs, earning them a bit more money. More people came after him when he left now, seeing as he was back in the bingo book. The next week, he let off about another fifth of his tenketsu. Naruto felt his control was slipping, so that week was spent training, mostly with logs. The third week, he was down to a third of his tenketsu left. Right now, Naruto was really nervous. What if he exploded again like he did last time? He was on his fourth week, and only had a third left. He could split that into getting a fourth of them this week, and finishing next week, but that was still a lot of chakra. Yes, I know my math is messed up, I know it doesn't make any sense, but pretend like it does. This day marked a week. Hitomi walked in, grinning like a maniac. Give me your sword. He frowned, but tossed her his sword. She caught it by the sheath. Now I'm going to seal this room with an anti-chakra seal. His frown deepened. He didn't like where this was going. And you're going to release the rest of your tenketsu. You'll stay in here until you can gain control of them. But dash. No. You're not gonna die. You're too strong for that. She kissed him on the lips, and lingered for a few moments, before sucking on his bottom lip. He granted entrance, and she ran her tongue across his canines, before making it to his tongue. They continued like this for a few moments, before Hitomi pulled back. And now you got a good luck kiss, she said, panting slightly. Naruto was too. He snorted. Since when are you lucky? That's it. I'm taking my good luck kiss back, she said with mock anger. It took her a few minutes, but she got it back. Release them, she said, turning serious. They were both panting now. He concentrated, before he felt them all blast wide open. He gasped in pain. It's too much, he ground out. No, it's not, Naruto. You can do this. I can't handle it. My chakra pads are about to explode. They're expanding to make way for the new chakra. Just hang in there. He shook his head. I'm losing control. Then hang on to what you've got left for dear life. Naruto looked at her. She laughed slightly. Didn't mean to put a double meaning in there, but do that too. Naruto started forming a Rasengan to blow off some chakra. Hitomi stopped him. No. No blowing it off. You've got to learn to control it without blowing it all off. At least add a ton to my weights. I'm giving you 5,000 and that's it. He groaned. Come on, I might not be able to blink as fast with that. Give me more. She shook her head. Blue shots of electricity shot across his skin. He screamed in frustration. I can't control it. She sighed. This is getting dangerous. I'm sealing the room. She started to walk out. Naruto slowly made his way over to her. All this chakra was too much, it hurt. But he'd be damned before he let her go. He finally caught up, and set a hand on her shoulder. Please don't leave me, he ground out. She looked back at him. Let go of my shoulder, and I'll stay a little longer. You're electrocuting me. He quickly moved his hand. She studied him. You didn't release them all. He sighed. I couldn't. Any more and I'd have fallen unconscious from pain. Let them go. Are you in dash? Let them go. Fine. Naruto dug down to the last 10. Each one he released, the darker the fur on his tails became. The red was becoming darker and darker. He eventually went into a semi-full demon form, as his body was suddenly covered with fur. That was Tenketsu 8. 9. His eyes turned silver. 10. His fur turned completely black. What looked like sparks of electricity were jumping all across his body. He screamed, his chakra rattling the whole cave. Hitomi nearly fell, but caught herself at the last moment. Seal it, he yelled. She looked up at him surprised. I said seal it. Now if this were any other time, she would have asked who he thought he was, bossing her around. However, this was a totally different situation. She ran up to him and gave him a quick hug and kiss, but had to break it fast, due to the chakra electricity. She ran out of the room. He gave her a final nod, and she made some seals. A large slab of rock dropped, covering the doorway with a loud bang that rocked the cave even harder. She continued going through seals, finally stopping on Demon Tora, and slammed her hands into the slab. It glowed and the kanji for chakra showed up on the wall in black, and an X made its way across the slab, finally covered the kanji. She could still hear that scream. It went on for hours, until finally it died down. The cave was still trembling. It had been for over 24 hours now. She couldn't sleep though. She walked up to the slab and set her hand on it. It slid open. She looked in surprise at the room. There were deep craters all around it where Naruto was trying to get used to all the chakra. Those last 10 tenketsu were the ones that kept his chakra from being endless. This would continue until he finally got control. She saw him in the middle of the deepest crater. "Hitomi, what's going on? I'm not running out of chakra," he ground out, still in pain. That's how he's going to talk for a while. "Those last 10 tenketsu were the ones that kept your chakra supply from being bottomless. You officially have more chakra than me," she said, grinning. "When I sealed those, I completely shut them down because you weren't ready for that much power. You needed to learn what it was like to have a limit. I believe you've learned that, and so I'm letting you have access to all of your chakra." "Well, gee whiz. Isn't that great? There's just a minor problem with that." Her face turned to one of confusion, and she stuck her tongue out at his sarcasm. They both knew he couldn't get it. "What?" "I feel like I'm dying." Another wave of chakra blew off of him. "And it's not getting any easier to control." She grinned. "It will." His eyes widened. "I'm gonna blow." "Now you're not." "No, Hitomi, get out. It's going to be the Windmill Village all over again if you don't get out." Her eyes widened. "Oh. That kind of explode." She turned and ran out the door, and sealed it shut, before plugging her ears. A loud explosion sent her on her face. Another one threw her into the air. Explosion after explosion rocked the entire cave. Yet it never ended. She would almost be afraid if they did end. However, due to her father's power and knowledge with seals, the cave had had a seal placed on it that kept it from ever collapsing. That was probably the only thing that kept it from falling at this point. Then the explosions paused. She looked at the door. "No, Naruto, come on, give me another explosion, or scream anything." She forgot that she was a Bushin, and that she would have poofed away had he been dead, but that didn't matter to her at this point. She got up, and was just about to unseal the door, when the seal glowed red. Since when do they glow red? At that point, a massive explosion rocked the whole cave. It sounded as though a nuke had been dropped in the other room. She was thrown away from the door due to the shock wave, and landed with her back to the wall. "You're lucky you can't control this, or you'd be dead," she thought as she slid down the wall. Yeah, that didn't feel too nice. She figured the best thing to do would be to go to her room. She was tired, and the explosions weren't dying down, or getting any weaker. It had been 26 hours. Hitomi got up, and walked down to her room. She got to her bed, and collapsed. When she woke up, Hitomi realized something. The explosions were still going. She looked at the clock next to her bed. She'd slept for 5 hours. How this kid could stay away for 31 hours, she would never know. All she knew was that she was gonna go have an explosion herself if he didn't quit soon. She walked out of her room, yawning. Rubbing the sleep from her eyes, she continued until she reached the training room. Hitomi looked down, and saw some bowls sitting on a platter outside the room with a little yellow sticky note on them. "I'll get this later. Naruto." She smiled. Looking around, she saw no signs of destruction. Setting hand on the door, she expected it to open. Instead, another sticky note was stuck to her hand. "I'll be out later." "Naruto." She growled. "So he just gets bored and locks his sensei out?" "Oh no, we aren't having any of that." She ran down to the end of the long hall and stopped at the library door. Looking at the door, there was a third sticky knot. She groaned. This couldn't be good. "The way to remove the seal isn't in there. Don't bother. Just chill out. Trust me, you'll be glad when I come out. The explosions should stop in a minute or two." Naruto. True to his word, the explosions stopped after a few minutes. She sighed at the peace and quiet, finally pulling the plugs from her ears. About that time a wave of chakra flooded the whole cave. She groaned again. He'd better make her pretty damn happy, or he was going down. A piece of string dropped from the ceiling, and on the end was a fourth sticky note. I will. Naruto. Okay, that was just plain creepy. She sighed and walked to the kitchen, getting her a small bowl of rice. She would have got more, but she had to keep her figure. Plus, for some reason, she could gain weight as a bushin. Hitomi finished her bowl, and got bored. Might as well. She went towards the training room, and got the platter of plates, and washed them for him, then sat down at the table. Great, she was bored again. What else could she do? Looking around, Hitomi realized the kitchen was boring. Getting up, she started walking down the hall, when a string dropped down. If you're honestly that bored, go to the library. You should find that entertaining enough. Naruto. She groaned. This couldn't be good. Walking in, she found that there was a big Naruto blow-up doll. Take your anger out on this. It's indestructible, and no, the clothes won't come off. Naruto. Hitomi ripped the string from the ceiling. Damn it! Why not? Grumbling, she reared back her fist, and slammed it into his face. OWIE! The doll screamed. She stared at it, then broke out laughing. The facial expression changed so that his eyes were spinning. She swung her foot up and nailed him. That's inappropriate, he yelled, going cross-eyed. A string dropped down. Told you you'd enjoy it. By the way, that last shot wasn't called for. I'm so glad it's not me in his place. Naruto. She laughed, looking around. How was he doing that? The shock waves were still coming strong, and hadn't let up in the least, or stopped for even half a second. I'm not anywhere in there. I'm in here, working myself into the ground. She heard an explosion. Ow, literally that time. Naruto. She was completely lost. How could he be doing that? She realized the shock waves had stopped, and ran out of the library, expecting to see him somewhere in the hallway, walking towards her, battered and bruised. Last one, and I've got to get back to training. It's not a bushin. And put in your earplugs. Naruto. Then the biggest shockwave yet came flying through the cave. She stuck her earplugs in as the explosion came. They were both the biggest yet. Hitomi was sent sprawling on her back. Then a blast of stone showed the anti-chakra seal had been blown apart by a blast of chakra. She stared in shock. He'd completely overpowered her seal. At the end of the hallway stood a figure. But it couldn't be Naruto, the silhouette had 10 tails. She moved in closer and saw nothing but black and white fur. The tails disappeared, and so did the fur. Out of the dust walked none other than her idiot. She ran and glomped him. Kit! She screamed. He laughed. Hello, Hito-chan. She got up, and pulled him with her. She looked in the training room, and realized something. There was no training room. It was just a pit. She couldn't see the bottom, even with her chakra-enhanced eyes. Naruto laughed standing behind her. It was that last blast that did that. Don't worry, it'll fix itself in about an hour. I can see the dirt piling up down there. She stared at him. You can see the bottom? You can't? She shook her head. Oh, anyway, it's a few miles deep. So how were you doing that sticky note thing? She turned and asked. That was driving her insane. This 10th tail is amazing. I can do things I didn't think was possible before. I can do things by thought. Hell, I prepared me a meal and had it brought in here with nothing but my mind. Plus my strength has doubled at least. I'm moving as fast as I used to could without my weights. By now she was grinning. You know you were right. You did make me happy. She put her hand on his shoulder. You made me proud, Kit. He grinned. And I could eat a horse. That's why we're going out to eat tonight to celebrate. She grinned. Ah, little Kitty-chan's first date, she said, pulling his cheek. How cute. He flushed. Let's go. She grabbed his hand in hers, and they walked down to the entrance, before she stopped him. You stink. Go take a shower, then we'll go. He groaned in protest, but turned and walked towards the shower. About 10 minutes later, they were on their way out the door. Naruto cast a quick genjutsu on himself. He now had black hair, gray eyes, and was eye level with Hitomi again. Wow, you look ugly with black hair. He frowned. I'm just telling you the truth. She took his hand in hers again, and they walked out of the cave. Naruto then ran to the nearest village, pulling Hitomi with him. They were there in 10 seconds flat. Dear Lord, I think you pulled my arm out of socket, she said, moving her arm in circles. He grinned and scratched the back of his neck. Sorry. She kicked his shin. You'd better be, damn it. They walked off, headed for the restaurant. They got there, and got seated, and made their orders. So, how do you feel, being on your first date? Naruto blushed. Shut up. Poor Kitty-chan's embarrassed, she said, grinning. Poor Hina-chan's deprived and desperate. Hitomi turned dark red. Naruto grinned. Payback. Shut up. Naruto just snickered. So, now that you've finished your training, what are you gonna do? Go after Akatsuki? She grinned. What are you gonna do about Itachi? Steal his bloodline. She stared at him blankly. I can do it by taking 2 drops of blood, and putting a drop in each eye. I'll get the same abilities of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Oh. I thought you meant steal his eyes. But that's not what I meant. What about Sasuke wanting to kill him? Naruto grinned. Itachi's going to give up 3 drops of blood. 2 for me, and the 3rd for the Shiketsu Kage Bushin that's going to get impaled with the Chidori. He said, grinning. Hitomi frowned. Won't work. Naruto frowned. Sasuke will figure it out. Instead of seeing a person, he'll see a sack of blood with his Sharingan. But Sasuke never had a chance against Itachi. You, however, do. So, when do you want to leave? He frowned. A week? Right now I'm too tired. I might have endless chakra and stamina, but my mind's worn out. He said, yawning. Just then, they got their food. The 2 finished eating and left. This time, she hopped on Naruto's back, and they were both in the cave in a matter of seconds. Walking down the hall, Naruto poked his head in the training room. Still got a few more feet, he said, looking down. Hitomi looked in there, and saw that there was indeed about 6 feet left. She looked back at Naruto. 6 feet reminded her that he was eye level with her still. Are you ever going to release that ugly genjutsu? He grinned and released it. Sorry, forgot I was wearing it. She sighed and shook her head. Walking down the hallway, they both kissed, and went to their rooms. Naruto collapsed on his bed, and was asleep in an instant. He had a strange dream where Hitomi was wearing a kilt, playing the bagpipes, while Naruto tried to break the bagpipes with paper chopsticks. He'd just broken the bagpipes open when a voice woke him up. Kit? He sat up and looked in the doorway. Hitomi was standing there, her face the darkest red he'd ever seen. I can't believe this, but I had a nightmare. Can I sleep with you? Naruto tried not to laugh. The almighty Kyuubi had a nightmare that could actually scare her. I see you trying not to laugh, she said, turning a little shrill. It's not funny. I'm sorry. Come on, he said, throwing the covers aside. She laid down, and he threw the covers over her. What is it that could scare you so badly? He asked quietly. She just shook her head. The next morning, Naruto woke up to find the bed empty. He got up and smelled breakfast. Walking down the hallway, he looked in the kitchen and saw her cooking up a rather large breakfast. What's the occasion? He asked. She stared at him blankly. It's your birthday, stupid, she said, laughing. He frowned. Wait, it was July. No, it's not. We're in the middle of July. At this point, Hitomi broke down laughing. Not funny. Yeah, that totally was funny. For your information, it's my way of saying thank you for what you did last night. She turned dark red. He frowned slightly. Letting you sleep in my bed? She nodded. What was it that scared you so bad last night anyway? He asked a few minutes later, as she sat food down on the table. She froze slightly. I dreamed I killed you, she said slowly. His eyes widened. But first I tortured you. I would slowly shave the skin off you, then cut the bone off. You'd spout another one until you finally begged me to kill you. His eyes widened even more. That would explain why she wanted to sleep with him. He stood up and wrapped his arms around her. I'm not going anywhere, he whispered in her ear. They ate breakfast, and went into the training room. The floor had finally rebuilt itself. They walked in, and Hitomi pushed Naruto left, and she went right. They met up in the middle, about 10 feet apart. First of all, you're moving too fast. I'm doubling you weights. He felt the weights increase, and dropped face first into the ground. God, it reminds me of that show Nikuyasha, getting slammed into the ground over and over again. She laughed, remembering the show he used to watch as a kid. Naruto slowly lifted his arms and pushed off from the ground, and was sitting on his ankles. That hurt. She laughed again, as he slowly got back up. You still want to be the Rokudan? She asked, as he stood up straight. Yeah. Try and see if I can't fix that screwed up village. Hitomi sighed and turned serious. You've got to learn to take on multiple S-ranked opponents, Kit. He just waved her off. Nah, I'm fine. Her eyes started twitching. And that is the attitude that will get you killed. I'm adding weight for that little comment. She added a fourth of his weight to his already insanely heavy body. Fine. I'll do it. He groaned under the weight. She recreated the Akatsuki members using Kagebushins. Each one has the same amount of chakra they would normally have. Itachi even has the Mangekyo Sharingan. She said, grinning. Naruto nodded, and pulled out his sword. Getting ready to disable some of his weights, Hitomi stopped him. She screamed, making him stop. You have to keep your weights on. He frowned, and she looked at her Kagebushins. You may start, she said, looking at them. She grinned, knowing he would win, but then her face melted into a frown. She had to figure a way out of that seal. Sure, it was great that she could stay around and help him, but what good was she if she just exploded after taking a certain amount of damage, or wasn't able to enjoy certain pleasures of the flesh? She found out that if things got too frisky a few months back, that she would disappear. She was unceremoniously shoved from the room, and after a loud explosion, she gaped at him. He was standing on mid-air. And damn it, she missed the fight while she was spaced out. Told you. And if it were a real battle, I would have even gotten my blood from Itachi, he said, grinning. She pointed at the air, and he grinned, holding out his hand. Come on. She took his hand, and he pulled her out onto the air. She yelped when he let go. However, Naruto just broke out laughing. I used my chakra to condense the air until it was solid. It's perfectly safe. He jumped up and down to prove his point. Then he fell through. Hitomi screamed and lunged, trying to catch his hand. However, she got a shoulder. Naruto was laughing his head off. She smashed her foot into the top of his head. You bastard! She screamed, kicking his head again. She pulled him up by the scruff of his neck and walked over to a section that wasn't hardened, and held him over it. Give me a good reason why I shouldn't. 'Cause I would live, he said, grinning. She frowned and poked the air with her toe. It was rock solid. I hate you, she said, letting go of him, and letting him hit the ground. He just laid there, laughing like a maniac. Suddenly, Naruto got up and sighed. I've gotta go right, Bachan, he said, starting to walk out of the room. She grabbed his shoulder and stopped him. Fill her up, she said, jerking her thumb over her shoulder at the seemingly bottomless pit. He sighed. Doton, Udo Hido no Jutsu, he said after going through some seals. Earth Vomit Jutsu. Dirt shot from his mouth at an alarming pace. After about 5 minutes, the room was full. Using his chakra, the ground was slammed down as though a giant block was dropped on it from an airplane. Hitomi looked down, and could see the bottom now. Naruto repeated the process, until the room was full. What was the point of that? You would have sunk if you had gone out there when you were about to. I was shooting wet sand and dirt. It would act like quicksand, he said, grinning. I compacted it into rock. Oh. Yeah. Anyway, I've gotta go right to Bachan, he said, turning and walking off. She ran to catch up with him. What about? She wanted me to tell her when I finished my training before I set out to kill all the people we hate. Ah. I'm reading the letter over before you send it, she said. He frowned. How come? Don't want you releasing any secrets. Like what? Our location, me, our relationship, Mio, and the fact that the Kyuubi has escaped. Well, sorta. They already know, remember? Oh yeah? Plus, I have no intentions of telling anyone where we are, he said, sighing. She looked at him, grinning evilly. Oh, Kit. Oh. I didn't do it, I swear. That's the problem. Huh. What you haven't done is the problem. You lost me. I know it doesn't take much. Hey. You haven't paid rent. Oh, and she tackled him, and he commenced the rent paying. About half an hour later, he was found in the library writing. Dear Tsunade-sama, I've finished my training. All my tenketsu are finally open and going full blast. I'll be going after Akatsuki first. Then I'll take down Orochimaru and bring the village's special little Uchiha back. So if Sakura comes in screaming in rage and joy at the same time, it means she was pelted with a hog-tied team. You'll be glad to know that if the ANBU tried to capture me again, it won't be anywhere near as hard to take them out as it was last time. He drew a dancing fox here. Naruto. P.S. I plan to take my spot as the Rokudame. He drew another fox wearing the Hokage hat. Tsunade laughed before stepping up to the railing on the top of the building. I have gathered you all here today to announce my successor, she said in her loud, speech voice. The fox had caught her just before she stepped up to make her speech. His little letter had helped steel her nerves for what she was about to do. My successor shall be Uzumaki Naruto. She grinned as the village of Konoha gasped and booed. She held a hand out to quiet them down. After he serves his dues for his crimes, he will take the place of the Hokage, as said in his father's will. The council members, who were standing behind her, were looking in confusion. She pulled a scroll from her pocket. It says here. I, Kazama Erasure, being of a mostly sound mind, she stopped to hold back her laughter at this. Wish for Uzumaki Naruto, my son, to become the Godame if he so chooses. If he is too young for that spot when its position is needed to be filled, I wish for him to take the spot of the Rokudame. Everyone, except for Rookie 9 and Guy's team, stared on in shock at this revelation. Naruto and the Yandame were related? Not only that, but as father and son? How could that be? For that reason, when Naruto returns, he will become the Rokudame, she said before turning and walking inside. We'll be overrun by the other villages. He's the village dobe. There's no possible way he could keep us safe, said a council member. Tsunade laughed as she headed for her office, the council members following her. Yeah, he's just so weak, she said, laughing harder, then tossing them the scroll of a letter sent by Naruto. The man opened it and gasped after reading it. How can he speak so lightly of Akatsuki, Orochimaru, and Sasuke? The other council members chuckled. We saw what happened last time he fought Sasuke. He was lucky to get away with his life. So were our ANBU members when he came back, Tsunade said, grinning, knowing they hated that little reminder. They were weak. He faced Kakashi. He's getting old. He's only 20. The demon did that after he defeated him. Okay then. Explain the fact that Naruto defeated 2 members from Akatsuki. He lied. It's as simple as that. Surely you don't believe the foolish boy. He didn't even give us names. He didn't have to. Jiraiya found that 2 members were dead, and that they had quickly filled their places. The council men were quickly changing their view of this boy. The point is, Naruto is strong. I could probably activate my own seal, along with our entire ANBU force, our shinobi force, the villagers, and probably all of you. At the same time. Especially if he's finished his training. Niji's report on the matter said that all of Naruto's tenketsu were completely sealed. In the note, it says that they're all open now, and on full blast. Which means that he had the power to push chakra through sealed tenketsu. Now he doesn't have to exert that force, he'll be unstoppable. He'll be put to death should he ever return. Look for a new candidate, they said before walking off. Tsunade looked at their retreating backs in shock. They seriously needed to crank up those hearing aids. Okay, here's the plan. Me and you have to go and destroy everything in sight. Then we take out Akatsuki, said Hitomi simply. No. This is the plan. I cancel the Kagebushin, go in there, blow Akatsuki to pieces, and then we move on to the Sound Village. She frowned. He responded to what she was about to say. I don't care how much you worry about me going in there alone. Akatsuki might have a way to extract you from a Kagebushin. I don't like that idea. She sighed, and nodded. This was it. This would be the end of Akatsuki. Stepping from the cave, Naruto cancelled the Kagebushin and started running. He should be there in about an hour at the current pace he was going at. Just like he planned, he was there in exactly an hour. Stopping Naruto's side, and looked around. No guards or anything. He just hoped they were all there. Stepping forward, he walking inside the front door, which led down the stairs, into a cave much like Hitomi's, only smaller. And shorter. Personally, he was glad he wouldn't have to walk a half-mile just to make it to the other end of the hallway. He walked until he heard voices. Using his chakra, he looked through the wall. There they were. The remaining 7 members of Akatsuki. Putting his plan into action, Naruto released half the weight he had, and broke through the wall, immediately slashing Itachi across the eyes to prevent him from using his Mangekyo Sharingan on him. Kisame and Deidara both attacked him, just as planned. Naruto put up his chakra shield to protect him from Deidara and started parrying Kisame's attacks. You've gotten strong, Naruto. You've gotten weak, Kisame. he said, grinning and plunging his sword into his shoulder. Kisame gasped in pain, and switched arms, tossing Samahata to his other hand. That was the only pause he needed, before swiping his sword through the man's torso and without pausing, moved on to Zetsu. Kisame laughed at his arrogance, before blood shot from his mouth, and his torso fell from his body. He was dead before he hit the ground. Dodging plant and tree roots, he got to Zetsu and made a quick demon seal. Kitsun Faia. He let out a blast of fire, leaving nothing but a black mark on the ground where the thing once stood. He noticed Haiden transforming, and cut off his head and limbs, before crushing his head beneath his heel. Not wanting to take any chances, he also set fire to Haiden, thankful that he'd done this before he could transform. Naruto then turned to the figure hiding in the shadows, and slammed his foot into the blue-haired being. Slamming his other foot into his head, it exploded in a mass of blood. Kakuzu was next on his list. Cutting down with his sword, Naruto relieved him of the skin on his back, and the masks. Throwing salt into the wound, the man was taken care of for the moment, as his screams of pain echoed through the lair. "You would need a force unknown to anything in this universe to destroy me," said the leader as Naruto turned towards him. The clay bird was still bouncing off Naruto's shield. This guy couldn't take a hint. Naruto laughed. "I've got it. But I feel like playing around first." With that, Naruto released all of his weights, and sent chakra to his eyes so he'd be able to keep up with his speed. When he did, however, Naruto noticed something amazing. He'd stopped time. Thinking things over, Naruto rethought this. He couldn't stop time just by releasing weights. Looking around, Naruto realized what was going on. He was moving so fast, it seemed as though time had stopped. He took a step and nearly screamed in pain. Naruto realized then that he was moving so fast, the force of movement took a toll on his body, like Lee when he released his gates. Adding a few 100 pounds to slow him down a little, Naruto tried again. It still hurt, but not as bad. Running towards the leader, he stuck a hand full of samban in painful places. He wouldn't be having kids anytime soon. Not that he would live anyway. Walking around, he pulled all the rings from the fingers of the Akatsuki members. Somehow, the ones he'd killed's rings were still in perfect shape. He collected them, and stuck them in a leather bag, drawing the string. He went back to where he was originally standing, and put all the weight he had on originally back on. The leader gasped in pain. "Betcha that felt good, didn't it?" he said, chuckling. Looking at the remaining people in annoyance, he realized that Haiden was somehow still alive, as his head was sitting up from the charred piece of ground beneath his stump of a neck. 5 people left, and it'll only take one attack to rid me of all of you. Except you, Itachi. I need something from you. With that, he pulled a syringe from his back pocket and uncapped the needle, before charging Itachi and stabbing his eye. His eyes shot open and turned into the Mangekyo form. Naruto filled the syringe a fourth of the way, before recapping it and sticking it back in his back pocket. "Now that that's over with, I'll give Death 5 lives," he said, sheathing his sword. The leader laughed. "And how exactly can you do that without drawing your sword?" "I wasn't finished," he said, drawing his sword again. "When I sheathed it, I dipped it into the darkest pits of hell. Now that I draw it again, it brings the burning flames with it," he said, grinning, before extending his shield to Itachi. Deidara had stopped his stupid bird attack, and was watching in shock. "Goodbye, Akatsuki," he said, putting the sword next to his shoulder, the flames dancing merrily, as though they knew that they were going to get to kill, and swung his sword outwards and across. "Shinigami Jigujitoka. Death God's reaping," he cried, the black flames burning a hole that seemed to lead to hell itself. Akatsuki's screams were quickly silenced by the flames. The blast could be seen for thousands of miles away. All of Fire Country saw it. Konoha was in a frenzy. Tsunade's door blasted open to find her laughing like a maniac as the council members ran in. "What, might I ask, is so funny?" "It's a time of joy. Akatsuki's dead," she said, pulling out a bottle of sake and filling up glasses, before handing them out. "I told you Naruto would kill them." One of the members dropped their glass, only to have it caught by Tsunade. "These glasses are one of a kind. I only break them out on special occasions," she said, handing it back to the councilman. The rest drank deeply, glad the threat was gone. The door broke back open to reveal a fox, carrying a scroll, a leather bag, and a vial whose cork had a string run through it. The member closest to the door reached down to take the items, and quickly drew his hand back as the fox growled, then snapped at him, before running over to Tsunade. She took the items from the fox, who yipped. She grinned and scratched its ear. The little fox purred, then poofed into smoke. "Well, what does the scroll say?" said the one who nearly got bit. Tsunade. The council's probably in a frenzy right now after that black light. It was actually fire from hell, but same difference. Tell them to start sharpening their axes, because I'll be back with Sasuke before the end of the month. I'm taking a day to recover, before moving on to Sound Village. Sakura and them with BCLL have their other Uchiha back in no time flat. Oh, and you'll be missing a Sannin when I get back also. Hitomi's about to kill me for playing around before killing the leader. She needs to learn to enjoy life. I've released Shikaku, who went to seek Gaara. The other two were just set free, and went back to the demon realm. Also, tell those idiots of a council to quit screaming. I won't do that to their precious little village. Also, tell them, she laughed. Tell them their precious Uchiha Itachi is dead. The vial of blood is proof. It came directly from his eye. I've set it so that once it's identified as Itachi's it'll burn. Oh, and just try to use it on someone. See what happens. A manically laughing fox was drawn here. Naruto. P.S. I need your advice on engagement rings. She finished reading it aloud, and the council obviously wasn't happy. They stormed from the room, after setting their glasses on the table. Shizen and Sakura walked in, concern etched in both of their faces. The Godame handed a glass to both of them. What happened? They finally fire you? Shizen asked, grinning at her joke, but worry was still on her face. Tsunade snorted. I wish. No, they were scared out of their little undies that fire was a threat. That's why we came, said Sakura. Tsunade tossed the scroll to her. Sakura's face hardened at the handwriting, as she read the note, and Shizen read over her shoulder. Sakura started laughing. That's a funny joke. Naruto Dobe defeating Itachi, Orochimaru, Akatsuki, Sasuke and being the cause of that fire. It was a few thousand miles away. He's too weak. You hear about the Disadekchi? Sakura nodded. You heard about him coming to Konoha and us trying to capture him? She nodded again. That was actually Naruto, Tsunade said simply. Sakura laughed harder. This is a joke. It's got to be. There's no way the dumbass could ever. She stared wide-eyed as Tsunade lined up 9 rings. Akatsuki rings to be exact. No way. She looked back at the scroll. And this Hitomi? Who's she? The Kyuubi. They're quite heavily involved, according to the PS he put on there. He's mad. He's absolutely mad. He'll do that, she yelling, pointing at the fire that was still burning the air. To Sasuke. Just then a giant blast of ice shot up, and froze the flames in place, before what looked like they were being sucked into a tube. So that's really Naruto, she said in awe, watching the flames disappear. I'm going to find him, she said, running out the window as fast as she could. A council member ran in with an overjoyed look on his face. She's not a Nukenayan, don't you dare! Tsunade screamed at the man, who ran out of the room with a mix of disappointment and fear on his face. Sakura ran, pushing chakra into her legs to force them to move faster. She knew it was a few hundred miles, but thanks to Tsunade, she learned how to travel fast and far, using almost no chakra. Naruto set up camp after he sealed the fire into a scroll. Hitomi had gone out to catch a rabbit, quite happy because she hadn't been able to hunt as a fox in a while. Naruto had erected a house of wood and roots, and was getting things set up in it. Like food. He needed food. He heard Hitomi outside, and stepped out, only to see the flash of a shinobi headband. Jumping into the forest, he let his half-demon form show itself, due to the fact that he wasn't in the mood to fight. Naruto felt the black fur appear across his body, and his tails and ears spout out. Drawing his sword, Naruto leaped behind the person and placed his sword to the girl's neck. Sakura had been running for about an hour or two before she found a house made of wood. Inspecting closer, she found it was actually a house made of tree roots, which meant that a shinobi had made it. She saw the door open, and jumped back, hiding behind a tree. She looked out from behind a branch, and found the door wide open, but no one there. Stepping out from behind the tree, she felt the cool metal of a sword press against her windpipe and jugular vein. A little more force, and she would be dead in seconds. Konoha Nin, have you come for a bounty? I've just killed Akatsuki, do you honestly think you'll be a problem? Disadeki-sama? She asked, not daring to say his name. She felt him nod. I'm not here for a bounty. I've never even purchased a bingo book. He let the sword drop, and sheathed it, before pulling it back out. It was burning with black flames. See those flames? She nodded slowly. If you're lying to me, these flames would burn your body and drag your soul down to hell. She felt a chill cascade through her body at the words. Naruto wasn't the carefree little kid anymore. That was for sure. It's Sakura Haruno. Naruto nearly dropped the sword, but tightened his grip. No point in setting a forest on fire. Sheathing his sword, he pushed her away. You're no threat, no matter how strong you've gotten. Why are you bothering me? I'm not going to get your precious Sasuke for another few days. Sakura growled in frustration and slammed her fist into his head. I'm not here for him. She followed through on her punch, just like Tsunade taught her. However, Naruto didn't as much as blink. Her fist connected, but he didn't even budge. Just like I thought. And I almost wasted chakra putting up a shield. He snorted. Never mind, I can't waste chakra anymore. She blinked in surprise. How can you not waste chakra? You'd have to have an endless supply. And I do. She stared wide-eyed. You really aren't a dope, are you? What gave you that idea? He said sarcastic, but his eyes glowed icy blue. You're different. The understatement of the year. I'm sorry. Why should you be? I chased you out of the village, made you responsible for Sasuke. I should have gone and tried to get him myself, not ask you to do it. You would have died. He would have taken a Chidori and shoved it through your heart. Just like he did me. I was wrong. You aren't a demon. I just said that because I wanted to make you feel bad. She really did sound sorry. I wasn't a demon. Look at me. I am a demon now. Boyfriend to the Queen of Demons, might eventually be the King of Demons. The title suits you, she said, sniffing suddenly, before launching herself at him, and burying her head in his chest. He saw Hitomi poke her head out of the forest, and started to charge at Sakura. Naruto shook his head, and waved her off. She stuck her tongue out and dropped the rabbit, before going back into the forest, probably to find another. He looked back down at the girl who had her head in his chest, crying her eyes out. He sighed slightly. He always did have problems with crying girls. Naruto put a hand on her back and rubbed it. It's okay, he said quietly, not really sure of what to say. She just shook her head. No, sniff, it's not. Sniff. A sob escaped, before she continued. It's all my fault, Sniffy left. You did me a favor. I couldn't be gotten as strong as I am now if I hadn't left. Hitomi's trained me in ways that would have gotten me thrown out of the village anyway. Plus, they'd been looking for ways to kill me for an eternity now. What's really gonna piss them off is when I take the role of Rokudame, he said, grinning. She gave him a brief smile, before stepping back, and looking him over. I was talking about your height before. But you've really changed. She reached up to scratch one of his ears. He tried to suppress a purr. She reached for one of his tails, but he jerked it away. Unless you want to hear the almighty Disodekshi purr, don't do that. She lunged and grabbed on, before petting it. It's soft. Holy crap, you really are purring, she said, laughing at the peaceful look on his face. Hitomi was suddenly behind her, with her own sword against Sakura's neck. I'm the only girl who gets to touch his tails. Drop it, she said menacingly. She dropped the tail, and Naruto stopped purring. This is my girlfriend, Hitomi, he said, pointing at her. She bowed. Naruto retracted his fur. Konnichiwa, Hitomi-sama. Just Hitomi. Last time I called her that, she nearly killed me. He muttered, knowing Hitomi would hear him. Shut up, Kit. Kit? Ah, what a cute name, she said, patting Naruto's head. He tried to bite her, but she pulled her hand back. Yes, Kit is such a cute name. Can I call you that from now on, Dobe? Said a snickering voice. He turned to see Orochimaru and Sasuke walking out from the trees. Naruto sighed and made a hand seal. The house went back underground. I don't suppose you came for dinner and a movie, before going back to Konoha quietly, did you? Sakura looked on in surprise. How could he speak to them so lightly? Hitomi grabbed Sakura's hand and pulled her away. Naruto's tails and fur reappeared. This time, claws shot from his fingers as well. Fine then, let's make sport of this, he said, grinning. 2 one-on-one matches. Sakura gasped, thinking she was getting dragged into this. I'll go against Orochimaru, then I'll go against Sasuke. Sasuke grinned. Fine. But first. He motioned for Hitomi to come over. She jogged over to him, and took the syringe he handed her. He held his eye open as she stuck the needle in it, injecting half the syringe's blood in his eye, then repeating the process with his other eye. Naruto grinned. I now possess Uchiha Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan, thanks to the Yandame's blood that runs through me, which contains a bloodline. Sasuke stared at him wide-eyed. I take the blood from a bloodline, I get the bloodline. How did you get my brother's blood? With a syringe, right before he died. Naruto said, grinning sadistically. You're lying. How could you? Because I'm the Disudekchi, Naruto said, drawing his sword. Orochimaru grinned. The Disukure Kako. I feel honored to see it, Orochimaru said, clearly mocking him. Hitomi. She nodded and disappeared in a plume of smoke. Sasuke, I trust Sakura can stand by you, and you won't try to kill her. He sighed and nodded. If she tries to hug me, she dead. Deal. Sakura frowned at Naruto, but walked over next to Sasuke and sat down. He sat down beside her. This will be interesting, he said, grinning. She nodded. Naruto activated his newly acquired Sharingan and looked at Sasuke. Don't bother trying to copy my movements, Sasuke. They can't be copied, even by the Mangekyo Sharingan. Sasuke sighed, and deactivated his Sharingan. Sakura stood up. And start! She cried, jumping back to her seat beside Sasuke. Orochimaru grinned, and immediately did a 5-pronged seal on him. Naruto just laughed. I'm not using her chakra, he said, grinning, before doing a 5-pronged seal release. Orochimaru growled and pulled out his own sword. Naruto pulled out a scroll. I did tell Bachan I'd send her your head, but she didn't say anything about your body, he said, grinning, before going through some hand seals and slamming them into Orochimaru's chest. He wheezed before visibly aging. Specifically aging 19 years. He'd have to thank Kakashi later for giving him those years. Looking Orochimaru over, he laughed under his breath. Dude, you don't age well. Which reminds me. Guess how old I'm going to live to be. Come on, guess. Jeopardy, which I don't own. Music started playing. 85? Wrong. 12? What the wrong? I give up. Can you say a good few millennia? Orochimaru screamed like a little girl and started throwing a temper tantrum. Sasuke stared in shock. After all that, Naruto was still stronger than him. After all the training and hard work, yet it was obvious Naruto was just playing around. Sasuke jumped up, scaring Sakura, who'd forgotten he was there. How are you still stronger than me? He screamed. Naruto's eyes turned cold as ice. I had a kitsune canine filled with blood and laced with poison naturally produced from the fang stabbed into my heart. Then I had my eyes, ears, nose, and esophagus destroyed, and they were replaced with new ones grown slowly by my body. This was after I had every protein in my body replaced with proteins from a demon. After that, I was trained with a few 100,000 pounds. And that was with my tenketsu sealed shut. Sasuke's eyes widened. Eventually, they were all opening my way to a bottomless chakra supply. I nearly died just trying to get control of it, he said, smiling sadly. Sasuke stared with hatred. But Sakura stared in shock. All of that, just for recognition? He nearly died and they wanted to try and execute him? That's when Sakura understood. That's why Tsunade was so relaxed about them killing Naruto. Because they couldn't. He was invincible. Naruto turned back to Orochimaru. You're dead, he said simply, sheathing his sword. Then drawing it back out, it was burning with black flames. Now, if I activate the same technique I used to wipe out Akatsuki, everything and everyone in the area would be destroyed, and I don't want that for the fear of being redundant. Orochimaru grinned, thinking he would get to survive. Kuchios, Edo Tensei, Orochimaru said, as a single coffin rose from the ground. On it was the kanji for 4. Naruto gasped, knowing who it was for, and undid his weight seals. Orochimaru did the seal to restore the fourth's appearance, but couldn't finish the seal needed to remove his emotions, because he no longer had any hands. Or arms for that matter. You will not do that to my father! I refuse to fight him! Naruto roared, panting from the pain of moving without his weights. Orochimaru stared in fear. He just lost his arm again, and hadn't seen Naruto move at all. Sasuke hadn't even been able to see him move. How did you activate your gates without making a seal? Sakura asked. Naruto grinned. Because I didn't use my gates. That was from a few tons of weights. The problem is, I can move fast without my weights, but the strain on my body is 10 times worse than Lee's. Erasure stood there, watching on. Seeing as he'd just be resurrected with no strings attached, he looked over at Naruto. Hey son! Not now, Ota-san, he said, sheathing his sword one more time, only this time, when he drew it, the sword was silver. This is untested. I don't know what it will do. You'll make a nice test subject, Orochimaru, he said, sticking the sword at the ground. He held it next to Orochimaru's neck. The man was screaming from the heat it was putting off. Naruto finally sighed, and let the sword slide through the snake's neck. The smell of burning flesh filled the air, making the audience hold their noses. Shoving Orochimaru's head in a duffel bag, Naruto punted it beside Sasuke, who got up to fight. That was where the real battle begins. The one that would put Naruto and Sasuke in the history books as part of Konoha. So, for old time's sake, want to take this back to where it began? Sasuke asked, grinning. They both knew that one of them wasn't coming out of this standing or more likely alive. Naruto grinned. To the Valley of the End it is. They both nodded, before turning and walking away, Naruto after picking up the bag with Orochimaru's head in it. He looked back at Erasure and Sakura. Unless you want to miss out on this fight, I'd suggest you come, because we aren't waiting. With that, he jumped into a tree and sped off. Erasure grinned and followed after them, Sakura right behind him. They landed, and Erasure pulled out a scroll, and quickly scribbled something down, before stretching it out, the writing facing the lake. Excuse me, Yondaime Dano. Erasure laughed, and rubbed the back of his neck. Sakura's breath caught in her throat. He looked exactly like Naruto. Please call me Erasure. Dano is a little too much for me. Erasure, what is that for? Huh? He realized she was pointing at the scroll. Oh. It's a recording scroll. A personal creation. See that circle in the middle? He said, pointing at it. She nodded. It acts as a camcorder. Then it writes the stuff it records onto the scroll so it can be watched or read. Amazing. He nodded. It's starting. She looked down and noticed it was indeed starting. A blue flash appeared in her line of vision, and she looked at Erasure. In case it gets a little too dangerous. Always trust a nice barrier. She laughed slightly, then turned serious, looking down at the two. So Naruto, you sure this is a fair fight? After all, you have unlimited chakra. Mine is equal to yours if it were limited. If you would, just to make it fair. Sasuke left his sentence hanging. Naruto took 2 fingers and jabbed himself in certain places in the stomach. We're even, but if you release your 3rd level seal, which I know you've come up with by now, I release my chakra. Or even your 2nd level, I release my chakra. Sounds fair. Let's go. Naruto nodded, and laughed as Sasuke started a Chidori. Really is just like old times. He gasped as Sasuke shoved his hand into his chest. You've gotten faster. Die. Sasuke ripped Naruto's heart from his chest. Sakura gasped and gagged at the sight of the still beating heart. The remaining blood inside the heart squirted out, before it finally quit. Sasuke grinned. You underestimated me, he said, doing a fire jutsu on the heart, just for the hell of it. No, you underestimate me, Sasuke, said Naruto, standing up. Through the hole in his chest, you could see the beating side of a heart. Sasuke roared in anger and ripped it out again. This time Sakura vomited her lunch. Erasure quickly used the barrier to push it off into the lake, and handed her a bag. That was disgusting. They both said at the same time, talking about 2 totally different things. Naruto just laughed, his heart growing back faster this time. Sasuke roared and ripped it out again. He did this a few more times before Naruto growled and kicked him away. It grows back, quit ripping out my heart, he screamed. I noticed. Sasuke grumbled, picking himself up off the ground. Sasuke grinned and activated his Sharingan. Naruto grinned and activated his own Sharingan. He infused it with his own chakra and something amazing happened. The 3 colon-shaped pupils reshaped into slits. Much like Naruto's center pupil. The Sharingan knows Zie Kitsune. Sharingan of the fox. Naruto said, grinning. More powerful than the Mangekyo Sharingan, and has a 4th slitted pupil appeared, budging the other 3 over to make room. 4 pupils instead of 3. He turned it to the Mangekyo Sharingan no Zie Kitsune. And a 4th wheel. Sasuke growled. Naruto was still more powerful, even with limited chakra. Almost too powerful. What are you? No mortal could ever get so powerful. Naruto laughed. Because I'm not a mortal. I'm the Shu no Kyuubi, king of demon foxes, he said, laughing at the look on Sasuke's face. Sasuke growled, and entered his 3rd level seal. 2 horns spouted from his forehead, and another from each elbow. His 2 gigantic wings shot out of his back. Naruto grinned, unlocking his full chakra. Sasuke pulled out Kusanagi, and formed a Raikiri. Forcing the 2 together, he formed a sword that was glowing with the electric energy. Naruto grinned. Fine then. We're starting with Kenjutsu. With that, Naruto pulled out his Disukure Kako. Sasuke grinned, and charged Naruto. Naruto swung his blade up and blocked his blow. Forming a one-hand demon seal, Naruto released a fourth of his weights. Swinging his blade, Naruto cut through the horns on his forehead. They grew back as Sasuke swung again. Naruto jumped back and sheathed his sword before pulling it back out. It was silver again. Gonna kill me, Naruto? You have to take me back alive, remember? He said, laughing. However, his laughter was cut short as his Raikiri/Kusanagi broke into. Naruto's blade faded back to its normal black color. Sasuke just growled and punched Naruto, who jumped out of the way, but was stabbed with Sasuke's elbow. Kicking him in the back, Sasuke shot away from Naruto. Forming a Rasengan made of black chakra, Naruto took aim for the still soaring Sasuke and fired. The black ball shot off, but was caught by Sasuke, who threw it back. Naruto held his hand up and absorbed the ball. Sasuke finally caught himself and charged Naruto again, who just stood there. Sasuke ran through some seals and blasted Naruto point blank. Katon, Karya Enden. Fire release, fire dragon flame missile. He continued it for a few seconds. Sakura gasped. Sasuke ended it, and Naruto just stood there, unscathed. Want to try that again? With that, he slammed his interlocked hands into Sasuke's head, sending him to the bottom of the lake. Naruto plunged a tail into the water, and a few seconds later, Sasuke was within its grasp, being sent into the side of the valley. Sasuke was lying on top of the water, gasping for breath. Then, he stood up and charged Naruto again, slamming his foot into Naruto's stomach. Naruto flew into the side of the valley, leaving a much bigger hole than Sasuke did, thanks to his weights. However, Naruto came out with a barrier of black chakra surrounding him, much like the red chakra did in their first fight, except this time there was an outline of 9 tails, and the fur on his ears had turned black, the tips turning white. Naruto charged Sasuke, Rasengan ready, and was met head-on with Sasuke's Habataki Chidori, flapping 1,000 birds. Arisha quickly made a tiger seal, enforcing the barrier. Sakura looked at him in confusion. This ain't gonna be pretty, he said, winking as the shield enforced itself. Sakura spared a glance at him, before looking back at the two boys. Their attacks were evenly matched, but they still fed more chakra into it. Sasuke knew that if he didn't find a way to end it quick, he was going to run out of chakra before Naruto, seeing as he had endless amounts of it. However, at that time, a spark shot from his Habataki Chidori, going straight to the center of Naruto's Rasengan. The resulting explosion was just like that of their first battle. Except this time, they both had the strength to get up. Enough warm up. Let's start the real thing. Sasuke nodded, his wings becoming rigid. Naruto released his half-demon form, and the outlines made by his chakra were filled with actual tails. Then the outline of a 10th tail pushed outwards, creating room for his 10th tail. Sakura stared shocked. Naruto was in fact the most powerful thing in existence. He was the first to reach the 10th tail. Just then he sighed. 1 second. Sasuke's serious face turned to one of confusion as a beautiful girl came into existence beside him. Thanks, Kit. It's really boring to watch from your eyes. I'll be over there. With that, Hitomi hopped up the side of the valley, and Arisha granted her entrance from the side of the barrier, then extended it to cover the third body. Okay, sorry. She's been nagging me to let her out this whole time, he said, sighing. Sasuke sighed and shook his head. Even in the middle of battle, he was still a complete idiot. Let's just get this done, Sasuke growled. Naruto nodded. Memories consume like opening the wound. I am picking me apart again. You all assume I am safe here in my room unless I try to start again. Sasuke decided that it was time to take offensive. So, Naruto? What do you think will happen when they take me back? Say you win. Naruto looked at him, confusion playing his face. We'll never be a team again. They'll kill us both, and Sakura will be left all alone. Naruto growled, swinging a clawed hand at him. I don't want to be the one the battles always choose, cause inside I realize that I'm the one confused. Except because you're a Kyuubi, you'll live. Naruto's eyes widened in realization. But I don't have those powers. So I won't come back like you. He kicked Naruto in the head, sending him into the water. I don't know what's worth fighting for or why I have to scream. I don't know why I instigate and say what I don't mean. I don't know how I got this way. I know it's not alright, so I'm breaking the habit tonight. Shut up. Naruto screamed as he kicked Sasuke in the stomach, sending him soaring. Sakura stared in shock. Sasuke was right. They won't kill you. They'll kill the demon, saying you had a good reason for leaving. You're their precious Uchiha. The only Uchiha left. Clutching my cure, I tightly locked the door. I tried to catch my breath again. I hurt much more than any time before. I had no options left again. Sasuke rushed at Naruto and grabbed his shoulders, shaking him. No! You're lying! If I'm the only one left, then that means Uchiha Itachi is dead. I killed him with relative ease. Sasuke stared in shock. What was the point of getting stronger if he no longer had a target? I don't know what's worth fighting for or why I have to scream, but now I have some clarity to show you what I mean. I don't know how I got this way. I'll never be alright, so I'm breaking the habit tonight. You took my only reason for living, he said, tears starting to stream down his face. What am I supposed to live for now? What's the point of my existence? To fight you and die? Sasuke screamed. Naruto growled. Sasuke shook his head. No, wait, if I defeat you, then I basically defeated my brother, and his defeater. Sasuke grinned, his insanity showing. I'll paint it on the walls 'cause I'm the one at fault. I'll never fight again, and this is how it ends. Naruto roared at his stupidity. You idiot! Don't you understand? You never had a chance against your brother. You don't have the power you need to kill him. You killed me multiple times over, but I can't die, you understand? He screamed. Then Sasuke realized something. Wait, I killed you, that means I killed my best friend. Sasuke started laughing like a maniac. Naruto's eyes widened in realization. How could he have been so stupid as to let Sasuke kill him? Sasuke's eyes swirled, the colons of his eye morphing into a large pinwheel shape. I've still got another flag. You only have 3. Sasuke grinned. It's more than enough to send you to hell. I don't know what's worth fighting for or why I have to scream, but now I have some clarity to show you what I mean. I don't know how I got this way. I'll never be alright, so I'm breaking the habit tonight. Naruto screamed, and drew his sword, slicing through the seal, and removing it from Sasuke's back. Then Naruto took a scroll, and sealed the skin and Orochimaru's chakra from the heaven seal into it. He sighed and shook his head. Great. Now Sasuke had the Mangekyo. Just what he needed. Picking Sasuke's now unconscious body up, he got up and let his 1/3 demon form go, transforming to his half-demon form. Tailless, but he still had his long kitsune ears. Let's go home, he said, throwing Sasuke over his shoulder.